Hey everybody, welcome to the Sunday show here on The Line. I'm Matt Dillahunty. Joining me. How are you, Promise?
I am doing well. I'm excited that we get to hang a bunch of Sundays in a row. I think we're doing like the next 2 or 3. We got to do the last one, so it's a delight.
Which
I
just
hope,
means nobody's going to call. I mean,
was
they're
about to
all so
say.
terrified of you. It's
uh,
I keep
yeah.
trying to make sure. By the way, this is the Sunday show. This is the show where we take calls primarily from people who are religious of some stripe or believe in something supernatural, some God, something that Promise and I don't believe in, or perhaps don't believe in. Maybe we do. And your job is to essentially defend it in a way, to explain to us either so that we can understand at least why you believe, to have a discussion about it, to maybe explain why we don't, and why we think, how much of a problem is it? Maybe your belief it isn't demonstrable, but isn't a huge problem. Maybe yours is one we've considered. Maybe your reasons are flawed. This is it, because both of us were believers who found out that our reasons for believing were incredibly flawed. And between the two of us, there's been a ton of searching and reading and interaction over a long period of time. And we have yet to see any good evidence-based argument for, I'm going to just say, anything supernatural. I mean, that doesn't mean the supernatural doesn't exist, but I certainly can't believe it does yet.
Yeah, it's a bummer. Well, and it's funny. I actually have been in an argument with atheists today because I said that I don't think religion is a mental illness, which you would think the theist would be happy with me for saying. So maybe they'll help me out and call in and present an argument and let us know their reasons for why they believe. If it's, if it's maybe a personal experience they want to share, although you and I both know how we'll respond to that. If it's maybe we don't know, maybe there's something we haven't heard before that's different. If it's, they have some sort of peer-reviewed study that they came across that they think is evidence for a God, that would be interesting if somebody's discovered that. I don't like the math problems when somebody says this math problem proves God, because I hate math so much. But we can let you take that if we get that call. I don't know. It would just be nice to hear some of the actual reasons that an individual religious person believes, because I think we get a lot of calls where somebody calls in and says, well, I mean, how can you not believe? Because this, and this. I don't want you to tell me why you think, like, why you can't understand my disbelief. I want to know what your reason for believing is. You, the person calling in. The thing that convinced you. Because if you're so convinced, there must be a reason for it. And that's ultimately what we want to hear.
Yeah. And if it turns out, I mean, so quick background on me while we're getting callers queued up. We will always prioritize theistic callers. So if you're an atheist, if you're a non-believer, if you're just calling in to agree or to talk about, the community or, questions or anything like, you can do that. But we have a limited number of phone lines available. You can call 720-619-2288, or you can go down below and there's a link to a web accessible way to call in from your PC or phone. As a reminder, if you call in from your phone, not only does the browser tend to go to sleep, but the phone tends to go to sleep as well. It's a good thing, except for when you're doing shows like this, in which case, if for some reason it drops off and we can't hear you, you're going to have to tap your phone, tap the browser, just as a reminder. But it's a great opportunity to call in and say, okay, here's what you guys missed, or why isn't this enough? I'm happy to take questions on it. Like, if you have a favorite argument, like some version of Pascal's wager or a cosmological argument, and you're like, why don't you accept this argument? It could prompt for some interesting discussion that might teach you something, or you might be able to find the flaws in what Promise and I are thinking, which would be very nice because I'd rather not be wrong.
And then we don't have to come to work next week. Next Sunday episode canceled.
That would be so cool.
Or we can come back and preach together. I could lead worship.
True.
You could
Well,
preach.
welcome to the line. Let me tell you right now, brothers and sisters, we have discovered the truth that we were missing. We've been sitting here for decades, interacting and asking and begging and pleading. Hey, why can't you give me a sign? Why can't you give me an argument? Why isn't God intervening to help us out? And last night, hallelujah, Promise and I both found Jesus or whoever. We don't even know who we're going to find yet.
Yeah. No idea. Could be anything. Could be something we've never thought of before, a different sort of God. I forgot, or I forget. Did you speak in tongues when you were a Christian?
No.
Oh, okay. That was my specialty. That was an exciting time. I could bring that back out again.
So this is a thing. So my friend Jerry DeWitt was Pentecostal and spoke in tongues and can still do it, despite being a godless heathen now, as can seemingly everybody I know who ever spoke in tongues. And one of my favorite stories, I wish I could say this is true. And I like telling it because I believe that this actually happened, but I wasn't there, so who the hell knows? He was at a Pentecostal church with his friend, and this particular church had an expectation that I think when you reach 12 or 13 or whatever, that you would join all of the other, I think maybe it was 13, you'd join all the other teenagers up on the main stage in front of the congregation, and to show that you are now a proper, washed in the blood, Holy Spirit possessed and guided individual, you would speak in tongues. And this 13-year-old is standing there right next to the pastor and says, I don't know what to do. And the pastor leans down and says, just fake it. We all do. Now, I have no idea if that story is true, but why would it surprise anybody that it's true? It's not like all the other churches out there don't think all the other churches are bullshit.
Right.
Right. When I grew up Protestant, Catholics are in a cult. Catholics are in a Mary worshiping, saint worshiping cult, and basically propping up the Pope and a bunch of criminals. That is a good chunk of what we believed. And the weird churches, the Mormons, that's just absolutely ridiculous. But they're so nice, and we'll go to their church for the Cub Scout group, because that's where it is. Because they basically own the Boy Scouts. And then there's the pew jumping Pentecostal, tongue speaking people. That's not the way church is supposed to go. Speaking in tongues is a special thing that happens just on occasion and only for some people. It's not a default, thing. So they're out there just performing and being charismatic. And we had an excuse for why everybody else was wrong. And I just soaked them all up when I was a kid, because you just believe what your parents are telling you, what your pastor's telling you, and you know how you feel. How can it possibly be wrong? You go to church, you sing, you praise, you feel elated, you get goosebumps, you feel good, you're around people who love you. It's a wonderful time. How could it not be true? How could it be the case you could be enjoying this and feeling so blessed and so wonderful unless there's actually a God and you are being filled with the Holy Spirit? What other explanation could there be?
Yeah.
Maybe somebody will call and dig in on that.
Right. I remember thinking that way. I think what a lot of people don't realize if they didn't grow up in it is it's not just like an overall cult mentality that you find within religion, but like from church to church, literally like across the street. They're relying on you to think that this is the church and this is where God wants you to be. It's really where God wants your tithe to be. And this is the correct theology. Everybody else is either like doing their best and kind of there, good enough, or they're not even real Christians and they are probably going to hell, and you need to get your Catholic friends saved. I remember that was the main. Catholics were not real Christians. Mormons were not real Christians. And we just felt bad for people that, maybe like you, who thought that gift of tongues wasn't for every day. The gift of prophecy wasn't for every day. We're like, oh, that's sad. You're missing like part of your relationship with God.
Yes. See, this is the thing. Here's the insight. Everybody else is wrong but us, but some of them aren't sufficiently wrong to be problematic. So Catholics, they're in a cult, and there's a number of other little, like, Christian Scientists and others that are little cults and pockets and everything else. But then there are the other churches, like I was a Southern Baptist, and so the Pentecostal churches, Presbyterians, Methodists, and the Bible Baptist churches and the Primitive Baptist church. Those are the ones that we can play softball with. And so we'll form a softball league with those people because they're probably still real Christians and still really saved. They just got some bits of doctrine wrong, but we're probably not going to play a softball against the Mormons until there's like some kind of division championship or something. I don't know.
Oh,
There's an
wild.
excuse for everything.
But it's so easy for me to like put my head back in that space. I can go back there and like remember what it was like to think that way. And yet I still am in shock that I believed so wholeheartedly. Because if I had called in on this show, it wouldn't have gone well for me. It wouldn't have gone well at all.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would have called, funny enough, because
Yeah.
I don't think I was secure enough to put voice to it. So I kind of hid behind, well, it's my personal private relationship. And I was being a really shitty Christian for that. Because as you know, like we're supposed to be able to answer for our faith. We're supposed to be, have a good testimony and be a good witness of our faith. And apparently all the theists that are watching now, because I know you guys are watching right now, are feeling maybe a little nervous about calling in. I will promise to, if you can be honest and you can answer our questions, we will have a chill, cool conversation. I understand what it's like to feel intimidated by that. We're going to ask you what God you believe in, why you believe in that God, and then you get to share with us.
And we're probably going to interrupt to get clarifying questions. But one thing that I'm happy to do, first of all, I've got my notepad open. I'm ready to take notes and sit back and do a lot of listening, because Prums doesn't really need my help or anything. And it's fun because we're definitely going to be trying to get clarification, because please understand this. When you call in and you say, oh yeah, I believe in God and I think there's good reason for it, and we say, okay, which God are we talking about? Here's the most common reaction. What do you mean? What God? The God? That's one of the most common reactions we're going to get. And then sometimes it'll be like, well, I don't really know that I want to go into that specifically yet. And so it's kind of like, I don't want to put a label on it. All of those things are fine. They promote conversations, but it's all we want to do is figure out, can we help you figure out what you got wrong? Can you help us figure out what we got wrong? That's it. And if we can't, we at least tried. And it's, to me, I mean, like Promise was talking about, when we were Christians, 1 Peter 3:15 commands you to be ready at all times to give a reason for the faith that's within you. But also the instruction to proselytize exists outside of Christianity and Protestant Christianity as well. There are, though, some religions and denominations that don't have, like Judaism doesn't really have any instruction to proselytize. I guess if you figure you're God's favorite and you make people jump through hoops to even become a part of it, why would you go to, I've never had Jews go door to door and be like, shalom, we'd like to, that just doesn't happen. And it's one of the reasons why we spend less time talking about Judaism, apart from the fact that it's also rolled up in some aspects into Christianity and Islam. But anyway, we've got calls lining up. If you are ready, there's an atheist with a question.
I am ready. I was, replying to Arden. There's a bit more of a lag than I'm used to having, so everybody bear with me on that, but it seems to be getting better, so.
Cool. Jonathan's calling from Utah. Jonathan, pronouncing him as an atheist who wants to talk about how to not be a pushover when everybody around you is a theist. Hey, Jonathan, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Pretty
Doing
good.
good. Well, I have a question. I saw your guys' show popped up on my phone. I was wondering, in Utah especially, I have a bunch of friends who are theists, and that's not a big issue when it comes to having a relationship with them. But consistently, they ask me what my beliefs are and why do I believe that I'm atheist and so on. And I can't help but see that I'm a pushover whenever it comes to them asking me about my beliefs. And I always concede points or play nice and coy. And I feel like I'm not being myself when I'm around them. And especially in this state, which is the majority of people who are theists are uh, kind of into their own beliefs heavily, I don't know how to navigate that well, and especially with conversations with family members.
I'm a little concerned. So you said pushover, but like, can you give an example of what they ask you and how you feel you're a pushover? Because it sounded more like you're avoiding the conversation than, like caving or being a pushover. I'm just trying to figure out what's happening.
Right. Sorry if my microphone is also rumbly, by the way. There must be an issue. But um, what I mean by pushover is whenever I'm in a conversation about their beliefs, either it being Mormonism, Catholicism, or mainly any theology that they subscribe to, I can't find myself to pressure them on their beliefs whenever they ask what I believe or why do I not believe in a God. And I find myself saying like, oh, you have a good point, or you are saying something that makes sense to me, and when it doesn't, and I don't pressure them
Ah,
enough. I feel like I concede the point too fast.
so you not only don't push back, which by the way, you're under no obligation to push back at all, but um, instead of merely not pushing back, you also just say they have a good point when they don't.
Right, right. I feel like as though whenever I bring up this topic of atheism, they get a little bit of annoyed. They get a little annoyed, and it seems like what I do is just ending up conceding the point, saying yes, I see why you believe such a thing, even though I believe their beliefs are quite crazy and sometimes a little bit
Do you,
abhorrent.
does this happen for like in all the conversations, or are there specific things that you feel like maybe you have a little bit of a like where you don't know exactly what to respond back? Like you disagree, but you feel like you don't have um the right thing to say. I don't know if that's making sense. Is it because you're worried about how to respond, or do you know exactly what to respond with? Do you have good
That's actually a
rebuttals?
really good question.
Or is it
Yes,
just a lack
but
of
do I feel as
confidence? Because
though? Oh, sorry for interrupting.
no, you're fine. I've got a delay.
Uh,
Yeah, does it feel like you have the answers, and you just are afraid of offending them, or does it feel like you're lacking the confidence to have answers for them, and therefore you feel kind of backed into a corner, even though you still disagree with them?
right. Right, and I think it might be better put that I feel bad loading the ammunition and providing it to them as though I have an issue with their beliefs, and I can't help but notice that it affects our relationship in a negative way, and I don't want it to. And you ask a very good question: do I have the ammunition to bring up some points? And I sometimes do. I sometimes have some strong objections to whatever they ask me or say or preach to me, and I feel as though that I hold back from providing what I believe about their beliefs because I just don't want to hurt them or ruin our relationship, even though uh, it's a big part of the culture here is to basically be open about this thing.
Yeah, why
Yeah.
don't you just ask them if they want you to answer honestly? You can say, "Do I have your permission to answer
Right.
honestly?" And then that gives you the relief. Okay, like what happens after this is you're going to be honest, and they said it's okay with them. Um, and you could also just say, "You know what? I don't think this is a conversation we need to have. It's fine to put those
Yeah.
boundaries up, but I don't
It
know,
sounds like
Matt."
you're very
I see.
conflict avoidance. That like you care more about the relationship than about whether or not somebody's accurate or whether there's a resolution to this. You may feel it's futile. You may, oh, I don't want to get in a fight. I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to. Then, if that's the case, then I tend to find honesty is about the best option, which is when they ask about that, it's really easy to say, um, I don't, I don't share your beliefs. Um, but I value our relationship enough that maybe we shouldn't have this conversation because I worry that it could lead to conflict unnecessarily because it really shouldn't matter to me what you believe or to you what I believe until those beliefs are impacting how we interact with each other in the world. And if it is, then obviously, you know, then you got to make a decision about talking. But yeah, if you're trying to avoid conflict, just do it.
And I enjoyed that you brought up the fact that I don't have any obligation to do so. So it's not like some morally in you know, ignorant position to be silent about things. I think there's time to be open about what you believe. But I think I should take to heart more of the fact that I should listen more of the time. I should not, you know, keep yapping, because sometimes I can. And I think keeping your mouth shut and listening is also a good way to go about things.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, we just are professional yappers. Also,
and you know, that's the thing I want to build is the wit and the ability to kind of hold strong behind your beliefs, and I respect that greatly about you guys. But it's something that I feel as though it could offend some people, but maybe I shouldn't care about offending somebody. Being yourself is important, but maybe that's where I'm not strong.
No, I think there's a way. Also, just so you know, there's a difference between what Matt and I, like the conversations we have here, maybe not for Matt, but for me, the way I have a conversation here is different than like how I would have it with a family member or how I would have it with this other family member. There's a difference between, you know, having general conversations and where this person is calling in and consenting to this long, like debate style conversation versus a family member. I'm not sitting there like, well, why would you have faith? What does faith mean to you? You know, I'm not grilling them the same way at all.
Right.
So this shouldn't necessarily be an example for you of how to hang out at the dinner table at Christmas, you know, unless that person wants to. I don't know if you're familiar with the street epistemology format, but there's a YouTube channel on here with street epistemology. And I think that is the best way to have these kind of conversations with one-on-one, especially with family, where you're more approaching it with curiosity and asking them questions. Why is it that you believe that? What is it that led you to that? Do you think that's a good reason to believe that? Tell me more about that experience. If somebody else had that experience about a different God, you know, things like that. So yeah, I think it's also a muscle that you build over time having these conversations. It's normal to not want to offend people you want to feel close to. So I wouldn't let that bother you.
It's also the case that it's very common to say, oh, I'm not ready to have that conversation yet, to yourself, and then be like, I think I'm ready to have that conversation, but I value the relationship more. You don't owe anybody an explanation for anything. Like my mom and I have had 6-hour arguments, and at no point in there was she asked some of the more direct questions that I would ask a caller to the show. Because the thing on the show is, like, for example, right now, let me pull this up. Right now we have two theists waiting. So we're going to probably end this call pretty quickly, Jonathan, because I want to get to the theist, and we've already kind of addressed this. But the point is, every time we're engaged with a caller here, there are people on hold who might have an answer, might have a better answer, might, you know, you have to think of a lot of different things while you're here. So you're going to cut to the chase. And I think if I'm guilty of anything, I'm a little too quick to cut to the chase, because after having done this for 20 years, it's not all the time, but sometimes I can quickly and easily see exactly what they've said, be incredibly confident of where they're going, and I just short circuit rush right to the end. And then nobody benefits from seeing the actual process that I learned over 20 years. Because like, in some cases, I'm like the kid in class. It's like, oh, I got the answer. And the teacher's actually trying to get them to understand the process so that they can all understand the answer themselves. But let's see if we can do.
And I would definitely agree with the fact that it is a muscle that you have to grow. And me being only 18, I definitely have some time to improve my conversing abilities with these people. But I really appreciate what you both have said about those facts of, you know, the Socratic method, maybe is what you would call it, just questioning gently, not trying to be provocative, but kindly asking, investigating what they believe. I think that's definitely something valuable, and I really appreciate that, because that makes me think about what I'm doing wrong sometimes.
The last thing I'll add before we let you go, Jonathan, is think about what your goals are. Because not only do you not owe anybody an explanation, nobody owes you an explanation, and it's not anybody's job to change other people or the world. And so if the goals are, I want to have honest conversations with people so that I figure out what mistakes I have in my reasoning and potentially be able to help them with mistakes in their reasoning. But as long as we're moving towards a better understanding, that's the progress I'm looking for. That's a very different goal from these religious people are all manner of stupid and fucked up and I need to fix them right now. Those are very different goals, and you could have either one of them. I don't think the latter is going to be as productive as the former.
Well said. Yeah, I think that's a true sentiment. So, well, I won't take up any more of your guys' time, but I really appreciate you guys taking my call, and it means a lot to me. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Hey, cheers, guys.
Have a great day. All right, so we got loads of theists if you're ready.
I am very ready.
Let's take something that we're not going to hear probably all that often. August is calling from Ohio, calling about omnism.
Nice.
Hey, August, you're on with Promise and Matt. How are you?
Hello, pretty good. How are you guys?
Pretty good.
Doing well.
So basically, the first question I have is, and it will get to omnism, but do you guys differentiate religion and spiritualism at all, or do you guys kind of combine the two?
I don't know what the word spiritual means. I don't know what the word spirituality means. They seem to mean something different to almost everybody, and there's no demonstration that anything spiritual is real. I definitely make a distinction. Religion is about, the orthodoxy and orthopraxy of when it's structured, but it is a system of trying to deal with either the tenets or whatever that religion's version of spirituality is, but that's separate from spirituality.
Okay. I only ask because, and this may be just like a stupid distinction that only I care about, but I only ask because technically I don't call myself religious, I call myself spiritual, but that's just,
I know it's obnoxious.
I guess that's neither here nor there.
I don't care. I don't care when I say it's obnoxious, I'm saying it is a picking of nits that I find no value in. Are you convinced that something supernatural exists?
Yeah, so I identify as an omnitheist, which is different than omnism, I've learned, because omnism is more like the good place where it's like everyone's wrong, but there is one afterlife that everyone was thinking about. For me, I believe in the everyone is right and you'll go where you die, or you go where you, you'll go where you believe when you die.
So Jews go to Jewish afterlife, Christians go to Christian afterlife, Scientologists go to Scientology afterlife, that sort of thing.
Yeah, or Jewish people and Christians go to the same afterlife and it's the same Abrahamic God. I don't know. I barely have time to
You don't know.
What's
Sure. What's the reason to believe that you're correct?
The weirdest part to me is that I kind of know that it's bullshit. I mean, not bullshit, but
I'm done.
I used to believe that it's like, oh, you can't get rid of matter. But then I realized that it's not matter, it's just electricity in the brain. So I don't have like evidence besides the anecdotal shit that people talk about on these types of shows all the time, which really proves nothing. I was more just asking to try to get more clarification on your guys' views.
Yeah, I'm curious, how do you deal with, the religions that completely contradict each other, where they say like this one doesn't exist, this God doesn't exist, this one does? How do you rationalize that?
Well, for me, I think that religion is literally just humans' way of dealing with the fact that we have no idea what the fuck is going to happen when we die. So I think that it's very easy to be like, this is wrong or this is right without... I mean, I feel like we're all playing Calvin ball when we have to talk about religion because we really don't have any rules that are confirmed.
Well, August, I would ask you why can't we settle on we don't know what happens when we die? What is the need to make something up? And is it that you're just wanting to have something comfortable to think about, or do you care if what you believe is true or not?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think for me, it's more. I mean, for me, I just like gathering info. That's why I called in, because I just want to know everything. But for my own personal beliefs, I don't know if it matters to me whether it's true or not. Just it seems like if there is something, that seems to be what it would be like. From things I've seen online, I can't fucking reference any of them right now, but like there were different accounts of like Peter at the gate or whatever. I don't fucking remember right now. But yeah, sorry if I'm rambling. It's really hard to word.
You know why you're rambling? Because you have no fucking clue what you're talking about, and yet you're desperately trying to flail around and find something that makes sense while acknowledging that there's nothing that apparently makes sense, and you don't even care whether or not it's true. So what good is anything you've said or thought about this subject if you don't care if it's true?
I mean, I'm less trying to see if something is true, and I'm more just trying to. I see what you're saying. I totally see what you're saying, and I see how.
If you were seeing what I was saying, you'd answer the question I asked, which is, what's the reason to think any of this is true, and why does anything you've said or thought matter about this subject if you don't even care if it's true? What could possibly matter more than that, whether it's true?
Yeah, I know that there is no like actual evidence, and so I know that it makes no sense to believe.
I know that you're never going to answer my question.
I'm saying
no. I've asked you the question. I've asked you the question now twice, and you just go off on a fucking tangent. How useful is anything you've thought or said on this subject if you don't care if it's true?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I feel like I have nothing else to say because I just can't think of the words quick enough right now, but yeah.
Oh, yes. It's about not being able to think of the words quick enough rather than listening to the question, thinking for a minute, and coming up with an answer. Here's the thing. If you don't care if it's true, why should anybody care what you think about it?
I mean, I'm not trying to tell anyone to think
if you don't
what
care
I
if
think
it's true, if you don't care if it's true, why should anybody care what you think about it?
I mean, they shouldn't. Religion should be personal.
If you don't care if it's true, I'm sorry, but you are of absolutely no use to me or anyone else on that subject. We're having a discussion about whether or not something is true, whether or not it's reasonable to believe that it's true. I mean, there's functionally no difference between saying, I kind of believe this, but I don't really care if it's true, than just the bong rip theology that we get on occasion, which is, oh, it'd be really cool if a giant flipped some grease off of its finger and our entire universe is one of those globs of grease on its way to the floor. Thank you, William S. Burroughs, who I'm absolutely stealing from there. But it's like, this is not a show for you to call in and be, oh man, I got this weird idea. I just wanted to quiz you guys about it. Why would you quiz somebody if you don't care if the beliefs are true? What difference could it possibly make what Promise and I think, or whether or not we've debunked the thing you're advocating for, or whether or not we found 20 fallacies in it, whether or not we could actually prove it's false? What difference does any of that make if you don't care if it's true?
Right.
I have no use for people who don't care about truth. And I'm absolutely confused and dumbfounded. I appreciate the fact that you were honest about it. But people who tell me that they don't care whether or not it's true, or they don't think they care about whether or not it's true. Do you care whether or not you continue living? Do you care whether or not you're healthy? Do you care whether or not the world's going to get better or worse? Do you care who gets elected? Do you care whether or not you have any rights? Do you care about anything? Because without caring about the truth, everything else is a waste of time. and I'm not going to let you keep wasting time when there's other theist callers on. So
Yeah.
let's try that. Ricky is calling from New Zealand. Ricky is a theist who says he's, or she or they, is multi-spiritual and 99% non-Christian. Hey, Ricky, you're on with Promise and me. How are you?
Hi, how are you? Good. I just want to start by saying I've been following Promise for a couple of years, and I absolutely love your videos. I'm multi-spiritual. Like, I believe I take ideas from most spiritualities around the world and bring them into my consciousness to hopefully make me a kinder person. And I'm also 99% non-Christian because I don't believe they're crap. So,
okay, whose crap do you believe?
Yeah, let's start with, do you believe a God exists?
I believe he exists, but I don't believe in his version of heaven and hell.
Okay, so you do believe a God exists.
Yes.
Have you watched the show before? Just so you know,
a couple of times,
I'm looking
yes.
Okay, cool. Because I'm seeing the description. I just want to make sure you're calling in to have a discussion about presenting, your reasons for believing in a God, because that's kind of the basis of this. So as long as you're down to have that conversation, we can do that. So that's the question: is why do you believe that a God exists?
Well, I've suffered from hearing voices for 30 years.
What's that got to do with the God?
Voices. Two of the main antagonistic voices are God and a gangster.
How do you know that one of the voices is God?
I can't be sure, but he yells at me every time. He yells at me every time I think certain thoughts. And
why would God yell at you and not provide evidence that he's actually God?
That I can't answer. It just seems to be.
Does it matter? Does it matter to you whether or not it's actually God?
Ricky?
You might have timed out, Ricky. You might have to tap your phone a couple times.
Oh, hello?
Does it matter to you if it's actually God?
No.
Okay, then we're back to somebody who doesn't care about truth, and therefore I don't care what you have to say. But the Promise might, so I'm not just going to drop you.
No, I think.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I think, Ricky, if you're just calling just to share your perspective just for the hell of it, this isn't the show for that. I appreciate you watching the videos. I hope that you keep questioning things, and if you're, struggling with any kind of mental health stuff, I hope that you have people in your life and that you're reaching out to, get help that you need for that, because that sounds like a separate issue to me from, from whatever spirituality you practice in your life. I think those should be separate things, and that should be something you go that route with. But I appreciate you, and we're going to move on to our next caller.
Cool. Have a nice day.
Thanks, Ricky. You too. Yeah, so let's just clarify for the rest of the theists. If you're calling, this is not testimony night. We want to actually engage in a conversation with you about what God you believe in and why. If you care that other people, if you think it's actually true, if you think it's a truth that other people should also believe. If this is just well, I don't even think it's necessarily true, I just believe it for fun. This is not, maybe there is some show out there for you. I don't think it's on the line, but that's not the goal of this. That's not the kind of conversation we're having. So maybe the next ones are. Do you have one that you want to take?
No, if you've got it up, you can pick. It's fine. It's one of those things where there are some of these conversations I would definitely like to have with some people. I'd love to find out why people don't seem to care about truth and yet seem comfortable making decisions about what they are willing to accept. Like, I can't believe something. Belief is when you accept that a proposition is likely true or almost certainly true or sufficiently warranted that it's probably the case that it is. And I don't understand how people can run around not only not caring about truth, but knowing they don't care about truth and admitting they don't care about truth. It's like saying you don't care about oxygen. It's really weird to me. And I'd like to dig on that, but we've got theists on hold. And I think some of them may be willing to try to say, yes, I care about truth. And I think I have the truth. And I'll help you find it.
We've got a caller from last week, Adam, that we can speak with. And Adam says he wants to continue our discussion about proof of God. So let's see. I think if I remember correctly, last week, we just weren't getting our questions answered. Maybe today we will. Adam, you are live on the line with Promise and Matt. How are you doing?
Good evening.
Hey there.
How are
So
you?
did you have we spoke with you last week, correct?
Yes,
All right. Well, we're ready to hear your evidence for God. If I remember correctly, it's the Christian God. Is that right?
right.
Okay.
So
Let's hear.
my question to start: what Matt and Promise? What?
I'm sorry. I'm
No,
sorry.
We
Adam,
don't start
Adam,
with questions.
Adam, can you see my coffee cup here? By the way, this coffee cup's part of the mug brawl. It says, I'm not answering questions. I'm not here to play this game again with you, Adam, where you avoid answering questions and defending your beliefs and start asking us questions. I'm not going to be answering a single question from you until you begin to demonstrate the evidence and justification for your claim that God exists.
Yes, I understand this.
So,
But-
No,
Adam,
you don't.
I'm gonna.
No, you don't
Also-
understand me. No, you don't understand me, or you wouldn't have done it. So don't start by asking me a question. Start by telling us what you believe and giving us a reason to believe it.
Yeah, Adam, I'm just gonna continue on that and let you know there are thousands of people listening. It's not just myself, it's not just Matt. So there are other people that will be hearing this conversation, and they might have a different answer for whatever question it is you're wanting to ask. So we're not starting with questions. We just want to know why you, Adam, believe a God exists. And it should have, if Matt and I disappear off the screen, you should still be able to answer this
Off
question.
the planet. There's literally
Yes,
nothing
exactly.
there's nothing that Promise thinks and nothing that I think that could possibly be in any way relevant to whether or not you have and can present a reasonable argument for God. So begin.
Okay, but I just need to know what is the
Adam,
standard.
I'm going to
that
mute you real
take-
quick. So, nope. Okay. We had this conversation last week. If in case somebody wasn't there last week, that's why we're really getting into it now. I'm going to ask you one simple question. We'll give you a chance to answer. If you can't answer it, I would like to move on to another theist because that shows to me how the rest of the call is going to go. But the question is, why do you believe that a God exists? If you come back with a question for us, I'm ready to move on unless Matt wants to stay on. So the question is, why do you believe a God exists? And you are unmuted.
Yes, because I was praying a devotion that is called Divine Mercy Chaplet in Catholic religion. It originates from apparitions of Jesus Christ to Sister Faustina Kowalska in Poland. And on 2 occasions, I had supernatural insights while I was praying this. So the first time I saw a white and beam, like a white beam of light, and I felt this supernatural, godly power taking hold over me. Great God's love that He has for me. And the same thing happened the next year on the same date, and it is the date of it is the feast of Divine Mercy, because Jesus Christ ordered this sister Faustina Kowalska to create a feast that must be celebrated in Catholic Church on the first Sunday after Christmas. And after many decades, this was finally accepted by the Catholic Church. And today,
So Adam,
this is
Adam,
one of the biggest
I'm going to
feasts in the
pause
Catholic faith.
and so
And,
I'm going to pause
on
you real
this
quick.
feast- What?
I'm gonna mute you real quick. My question for you, I'm familiar with Catholic feasts and celebrations and all of that enough to know that my question for you is, how do you know that it was something supernatural that occurred to you?
Well, in that case, we have to agree in some way. What is the standard for a proof of God?
No,
You don't believe me?
no, we don't. I'm going to mute you again, Adam, and I'm going to explain this, and you're going to listen and pay close attention because I'm not doing the same bullshit with you this week that we did last week. Promised to ask you. I took notes of what you said. You said you were praying a devotion to Divine Mercy, which is about Catholic apparitions to a particular sister. And in that, you felt a supernatural insight where you saw a white being being or beam of light, I'm not sure, but it doesn't matter, whatever. You saw something and you felt a supernatural godly power take over you. And the same thing happened exactly 1 year later during the Feast of Divine Mercy. I listened, I took fucking notes. I'm here to actually do this correctly. My first question to you was, how do you know that what you experienced was supernatural? That's literally the question that Promise just asked you. Promise and I are on the same page. We are asking you questions. There is nothing about what Promise or I already think about God's God, epistemology, standards of evidence, nothing that is relevant at all to your justification that what you experienced was supernatural. We're asking you, how did you determine that it was supernatural? And by the way, even if it is supernatural, which you haven't established, you then would have to show that God is the best explanation for why you experience something supernatural. And we're happy to have you try to do that as well. But you don't need to ask us a single question. You didn't know us. You didn't know of us. You didn't know our standards of evidence at all when you decided this event was supernatural. Therefore, nothing about our view is relevant. So I'm not playing this fucking game with you. Pay very close attention. I'm going to unmute you, and I need you to tell us how you determined that it was in fact supernatural, and is this something that we can also determine? So here we go. Your turn.
Okay. Can I continue?
Okay, Adam, I'm going to mute you again. I'm remembering you very well now from last week. You're the jackass that kept doing the can I talk, can I continue, while listening to not one fucking word we said or answering one fucking question we asked. I'm sorry, there may be a language barrier, so I'm going to take a breath and make sure that I don't get too upset. I'm going to unmute you. And when I do, you are then going to explain how you determined that the experience was supernatural. And then we may want to find out how we can determine it's supernatural. When I unmute you, that's when you can start talking. It's not when you start by saying, can I talk now? Because you sound like a prick when you do that. So let me unmute you. And when I do, after the beep's done, you'll be able to say, okay, I determined it was supernatural experience because, and then give your reason. I'm going to unmute you now.
Okay. I determined that it was a supernatural because after that, the same thing happened the next year, and I just wanted to know more about it. So I found out that Jesus Christ has ordered Faustina Kowalska.
Adam,
yes?
How does something happening twice make it supernatural?
Well, can you at least allow me to say everything, and then we can specify?
No, I'm not. No, you've been dishonest and avoidant. I'm not going to let you talk for ages on things that are useless. All I'm doing is asking you a simple question, which is, how does the fact that something happened twice, 1 year apart, prove that it's supernatural?
Because it's more convincing if it happened twice. If it happens 3 times, it will be even more convincing.
I've had 2 orgasms, Adam. Were they supernatural?
No.
No. So how does something happening twice prove it's supernatural?
Because it doesn't happen in a regular order of things. It
But
doesn't
Adam,
happen
how do
even
you
once.
Adam, how do you know that you didn't have a false memory? How do you know that it wasn't just a weird dream? How do we know that you're not just completely making this up and lying?
Can I give you an answer to this? Because I can give you a very good answer.
I bet you can't.
Because
I'll bet you $100 that you cannot give us a very good answer to this, but go right ahead and try.
okay, in 2013, Jesus Christ in Philippines has decided to create a sun miracle on the Feast of Divine Mercy. Okay?
How do you know
10,000
that?
people saw that, and you have a video on YouTube
Nope.
of that sun miracle.
I'm sorry, Adam,
So,
but
you have
how did you
10,000 people.
determine, Adam, how did you determine this event that you saw in video was actually Jesus doing this?
Because it was visible only by 10,000 people who were on Philippines on that same place, and it was
How does that
also
prove that it was
recorded on a
Jesus?
camera.
How does that prove that it was Jesus?
What?
How do you know it wasn't Satan
Because
trying to convince people to worship him instead?
As the entire devotion of Divine Mercy doesn't lead people into sin. It leads them into holiness.
Adam,
no,
I
no,
asked
no.
a question.
You're engaged in special pleading. We're asking you, what standard of evidence could you use to determine that it was Jesus that caused this rather than something else?
So then you have to specify what is your standard.
No,
for me
sir.
to explain
No,
it.
sir. I'm completely done with Adam forever. When I ask you what standards of evidence, it doesn't matter what standards of evidence I have. You're the one making the fucking claim. You're the one that has the fucking standards, and you're the one that's going to need to explain what those standards are. And the standards that you attempt to explain every time are absolute garbage special pleading. Oh, Jesus did it because this comes during this feast, and that's only to elevate people. You are assuming everything that you would need to prove. You are assuming that there is a God, that there is a feast, that this is about a particular thing that can only do this and that it can produce this. You are assuming everything. Where is the evidence that Jesus has ever done anything?
Evidence is when you see a sun miracle where Jesus Christ is pulsating the sun to prove that he is there present.
Adam,
and that
Adam,
he is communicating
Adam,
with the sun,
Adam,
with 10,000 believers. That's a very convincing evidence.
Adam, stop. If the sun stands still in the sky and everybody witnesses it, does that mean Jesus did it?
No.
No. So I just described a miracle that is vastly more impressive than your YouTube video of some people in the Philippines seeing something. And you just acknowledged that if we were to all witness that, it would not in any way prove Jesus. And yet you think that your garbage video proves Jesus. And all we're asking is, why? What about it demonstrates that Jesus did something?
Because it is unlikely that the sun would start pulsating on the very time.
I'm
and
completely
place
done.
I don't
Promise I'll
think
give up.
he
organized
is
only
getting
for
it.
a celebration
Adam.
of the feast.
Okay, Adam, I don't think it was Jesus. I think that it was the goddess Athena that did that. Which one of us is right? I think she did it just to confuse you.
Yes, but that sounds kind of ignorant and infantile.
Fuck you.
You know, like you are.
Adam, that's
kind
how I
of-
feel about what you're saying.
You're not for
what it
real.
sounds like right now. We have the exact same amount of evidence. I have the exact same amount of evidence that the goddess of Athena did that as you do for saying that it was Jesus. Either you are just completely
present me this
incapable of
evidence.
providing an I'm in the middle of talking. Either you're completely incapable of engaging honestly because you are relying at the end of the day on pure faith, meaning you have no good reason for what you believe, or you're trolling us and just don't care and you know that it sounds ridiculous. I I would like an honest answer. I'll give you one last chance. Why are you right that it's Jesus and I'm wrong that it's Athena?
Because my story is much more convincing than yours.
It's not.
You're actually trolling.
Go away, Adam.
Adam, we would be convinced if that was true. It doesn't work that way. Are you done, Matt? I'm ready to move on. There,
I'm so completely done with Adam.
Okay,
This
cool.
is embarrassingly bad to the point where I can't take Adam seriously. Don't bother calling me back. Call other people though, Adam, because it's fun.
Yeah, call the show tonight. Talk to them. I see another call in the queue.
Yeah, go for it. I am
fat,
dumb, and happy and more than moderately irritated. So let's get a clean palate.
Let's talk to Jack. Hey, Jack, you are live on the line with Promise and Matt.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Yeah, I mean, I think there's like successful arguments for theism.
I don't want to know successful arguments. I want to know, do you believe in a God? And if so, why? Okay, great.
Should we believe in a God?
Because there's sound arguments establishing his existence.
Yeah. So, and you think we should accept those too? So, can you give us the sound argument?
Yeah. So we can just say for any x, if x is apt to external explanation, there's the possible world in which x is externally explained. The BCCF is apt to external explanation. There's for
I'm sorry, Jack.
A troll.
I'm sorry, Jack. We're just going to assume that you're a troll, a common troll, because you called twice before and you wanted to argue that evil is evidence for God, and now you're reading something which sounds like it's a modologic argument, and I don't accept modologic arguments as evidence for what's actually real. So if it's a modologic argument, we can just skip it. What we're looking for is a sound evidence-based argument. And when you called in, you said that God predicts certain things, like how rain predicts the ground being wet, except that that's not a prediction. Rain doesn't predict the ground is going to get wet. Rain doesn't even necessarily make the ground wet. And you were going to talk about God predicting things. So are you going to do that, Jack? Or was this just a chance for you to rattle off a script? We'll let you answer that.
Yeah, the issue is you just did a fallacy of equivocation.
Goodbye.
Damn, this is frustrating. I was hoping that there was like going to be actual theists.
It's so wild because we had theists, and of course the Phil bros who are dishonest and want to spew out stuff. I don't even assume that they're actual God believers, because how embarrassing would it be to believe in a God and then think your best course of action is to call in and spew forth a bunch of philosophical jargon that isn't going to do anything. This is the same person that tries to call in and, oh, can I catch you in not understanding what's actually wrong with S5? As a matter of fact, I think this guy might have called John and John's guest last night. Was that last night?
I don't know if it was this caller specifically, but when I tuned in for just like a couple minutes, they had another Phil Bro type person, so could well be.
Yeah, it's
John's
funny.
Actually in chat, so John can let us know.
I don't know. In any case, if your thing is just, oh, you just did a fallacy that was this. I didn't do a fallacy because I didn't make an argument, you dipshit. You're calling in to see if you can distract and deflect. And I doubt very seriously that you're a serious God believer who cares to defend it at all. So I'd really love to know, is this like a Baba Booey thing? Have you guys got a little club where you get around and have circle jerk meetings where you're like, oh, I managed to call in and I said this and they didn't catch it, or I said this and they hung up on me, or I said this and they... I'm sorry. I'm genuinely sorry that we have no more spoons left for the trolls and the dishonest arguers. Is there nobody left who sincerely believes and cares to even attempt to defend it? Have all God believers, have all supernatural believers completely given up to where all they can do is attempt to obfuscate or troll rather than saying, here it is. I think we know the answer. The difference is that integrity and intellectual honesty puts us in this position where we can't say, yep, there are no arguments, there is no evidence, there never will be any arguments, there never will be any evidence. It is exactly the same as science. Science often gets criticized by people who have views that oppose science is, well, science is always changing and they're finding out that they did something wrong, and they're fine-tuning it, and God's word's just never changing. And so I'm going to stick with that. And you can't trust the science. And the reality is that science has the integrity not to make proclamations of truth or absolute certainty. Instead, science is continuing to test and revise propositions and models to see if they are consistent with the facts of reality, if the evidence supports the claims and the propositions that they're making about how the world seems to be working. Similarly, skeptics, people with reasonable, sound epistemology that want to withhold judgment until such time as the evidence compels you to reach a conclusion, are going to sit here and we're going to have to, for the rest of our lives, until we quit, engage with dishonest people who, rather than saying, here's why you should believe in God, instead try to do this mathematical, philosophical tap dance to see if they can either look smarter or avoid anything close to an actual evidence-based argument. It's embarrassing. And every time you do it, you just make the atheists, the skeptics, look like we're the only reasonable ones left in the room. And I'm going to point it out every single time. There are no Christian apologists. There are no Muslim apologists. There are no Hindu apologists. There are no Jewish apologists. Well, there's really not too many of them. There are no Scientologists. There are no apologists for any major world religion who can last any period of time beyond a cursory introduction if they are being expected to answer questions like, do you care if it's true? How can you demonstrate it's true? Should we believe that it's true? Every single attempt has been a lie, special pleading, fallacies left and right, or, hey, rather than saying, I don't know, I don't feel comfortable saying I don't know. So I'm just going to say, when you see something like that, my story is more plausible than yours. Yes, I'm referencing the other caller from earlier. My story is more convincing. No, the fact that you are convinced demonstrates your bias towards that, doesn't demonstrate that your bias towards it is justified. This is what you have to do. You have to say, I am biased towards this answer, and the justification for that bias is this stack of evidence. That's the way this works. Anyway, you guys are getting really embarrassing and weak. So let's try this again, because there's other theists on hold, and hopefully these are the theists where we can have good conversation. So Ethan's calling from Washington, prone to him. Question about epistemology and discerning the difference between claims and evidence. Hey, Ethan, how are you?
Hi, Matt and Thomas. Thank you for taking my call. I'm doing good. I appreciate your time and insight. I think you probably remember I'm starting to deconstruct and question my beliefs. And I was wondering about, like, how do you begin to question or know the difference between claims and evidence? For example, I
don't understand. Claims are propositions about how the world works, and evidence are the facts that strongly point to one proposition more than any other.
Okay, so, like, for example, something like from Eusebius, would that be a claim? Like something from Eusebius talking about the authorship of the Gospels? Would that be a claim, or would you use that as evidence?
It is a claim. If the claim is warranted and justified by evidence, that proposition becomes an accepted true fact or likely true fact about the world that can be used as evidence elsewhere.
Okay.
So if my claim is, I used to be a Christian, and somebody says, well, you claim you used to be a Christian. What's the evidence for that? And I can say, well, you can talk to the people who knew me back then, my parents and my relatives, but also some of them have shown up to my debates to talk about how they knew me in church and how they thought I was going on to good things for God. And at the end of the day, since nobody can know who's a true Christian but God, all we can say is that I believed I was a true Christian, seemingly, which I can't demonstrate to anybody else, but everybody around me did as well. And I was active in the church and I studied this stuff and blah, 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 blah. And it's up to you to consider how much value that is. But if you accept my claim that I used to be a Christian, that now becomes an accepted proposition that could be used as evidence in some other story, which is if somebody were to say, hey, I went to church with Matt at this church, then the fact that I am a self-professed Christian with my claim now becomes evidence that potentially supports their claim that they went to church with me. Then we have to dig in and say, oh, did he go to that church at that time and all that stuff? So you put together the facts, and the facts need to be reliable. So when somebody says, hey, my claim is vaccines cause autism, and when they start citing their evidence, and their evidence is a study that includes lies, and then we start looking at the other evidence that shows that's not the case, then that claim doesn't become confirmed or reasonable to believe. And therefore, if somebody were to have a different discussion and say, hey, we want to stop using vaccines, then you don't get to use the vaccines cause autism claim as evidence for ending the use of vaccines. So it's a process that builds. Here's a claim about how the world works. We provide arguments and evidence that support that claim. And once that claim becomes accepted, it can then be used as a supporting evidence for other claims. This is exactly what we do in logical arguments, where premises lead to a conclusion, and that conclusion can then be used as a premise in another argument. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a lot. I think it makes sense, and I think like you can use claims to eventually come up with facts, and then use those. Actually, I'm not going to try and say it back because I'll mess it
That's
up.
all right. Re-listen to it, and assuming I didn't say it wrong, just jot it down and think about it, and it'll hopefully become clear. And if not, we can try again.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, the reason why I ask is I'm trying to go through my beliefs, and I don't, like, if you were to even ask me, like, why, I think the answer would be more psychological than even evidence. Because I mean, even all the arguments, that's not why I believe or anything like that.
So
Why do you
Go
still
ahead, Promise.
believe?
Why do I still believe?
Yeah, and not to get
I
into a
think
debate. We don't have to go that way. I know that's not why you called, but I'm just curious, what, like right now, in your most honest answer, what's your reason for continuing to believe?
Probably maybe a little bit of fear. The fear of being wrong, the fear of
What if you're
not
already
having
wrong?
direction. Sorry, say it again.
What if you're already wrong and there's some other God out there that's really pissed off that you're not believing in them and are still sitting there believing in some other God?
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility. I've never, I mean, Christianity has always made sense to me. It's always been kind of my outlook. So I've looked at other religions. I haven't found any of them to be convincing. So if I didn't go with Christianity, I wouldn't go to another religion, I don't think.
You don't think it makes sense to you because you grew up around Christians and in a culture that's predominantly Christian? You don't think that people who grow up around Hindus or Muslims find those things make sense where Christianity doesn't?
Oh no, I know they do. I mean, there's no question.
Okay, so if the most probable reason that you find it makes sense is that you were steeped in it, then isn't that a demonstration of a bias that should make it so that you don't accept that thing?
Yeah. I mean, if you can, and that's another thing that I struggle with is, I mean, just because I do have a bias doesn't necessarily mean it's untrue, but it can definitely, as long as you can recognize that bias, you can see a lot clearer. I don't know how to get rid of that bias.
So I'll
don't-
ask you the
I mean-
question that we've asked everybody else. Do you care if your beliefs are true?
I do. Yes, I do.
Then how do
I
you
do
figure
think
out if how can you possibly believe something if you don't have good reason to think it's true?
I think just probably indoctrination.
Okay. But
yeah, I think you were really
but-
honest when you said fear, because I do think that that's probably this last little bit hanging on here. Is there any part of you that feels like you're actually not really convinced, but you're just trying to go along with it based off of that fear? Or is there part of you that's like, no, I really think that there's a God?
Probably a little bit of both. I mean, there was a lot of fear and like trauma, like, you know, growing up. So it's kind of like I can't even really trust like, what I believe on first, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're taught not to trust yourself, basically.
to me, if I absolutely care whether or not what I believe is true. And so I evaluate the things that I believe. And if there's not good reason to believe that they're true, it is impossible for me to still think they're true. That is a level of cognitive dissonance that I cannot do. I cannot both say, I am convinced this is the case, and I have no good reason to think it is the case. Belief is the state of being convinced. What I can do is pretend that I believe or act like I believe or try desperately to convince myself and everybody around him I believe, but I can't actually believe. And I'm always baffled by people saying, I believe, but I don't think I have a good reason. I'm not convinced they actually believe. I don't know because I can't get in your mind or anybody else's, but it may be that what you believe in is belief. You don't believe that there's a God, but you believe there's some incredible value of you not claiming or not acknowledging that you don't believe it anymore. That there's more value and more benefit to not saying, I don't believe this, even though it's true that you don't believe it. But if you're actually in a place where you're like, I believe it, but I don't have any reason, the answer may be no, but do you have some way to explain that to me to make it make sense? Do you think you pick your beliefs?
No, I don't think you pick your beliefs, but I mean, I don't want to say brainwash, but I think you can just kind of absorb beliefs to where you think that that's the normal standard way that everything is.
To me, what you just described is believing in belief. I don't think you can absorb,
Yeah.
I am convinced X is true. But I don't know.
I think you're on a great path. Like, I love that you're continuing to call in and asking these questions. I think you do care about what's true or not, or else you wouldn't have made it this far. And how long have you been, like, how long was it since you first started really honestly asking these questions?
Maybe like a month. I mean, maybe a little bit over a month.
Well, you're doing great.
I mean, I've always asked questions, you know, like, but I guess the difference is now I'm not looking to the Bible or looking to pastors for answers.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really, really good.
And I mean, I guess like the big thing that I worry about is if I'm just kind of spinning my wheels. Like you said, if I really deep down believe in it, or if it's just fear, because I mean, I can't describe like how much fear has played a role in religion and spirituality for me. Even like the thought of hell. Like growing up as a kid, like I thought hell would be like a coffin that I would get in, and I would spend, you know, I would try and think about, you know, burning inside of a coffin for trillions of years. So, and that kind of just continued. I mean, eventually I thought, well, that's not real, but.
Yeah.
I'd highly recommend you reach out to recoveringfromreligion.org and possibly the Secular Therapy Project, because it sounds like there's things that I'm not qualified to even assess. And And I'm going to ask you another question, Ethan. And by the way, it's fine also if the answer is no, but I feel a need to keep asking this question to people because you just talked about spirituality. What does that word mean to you?
I guess just non-physical. I mean, I've always thought of it as like the breath of God, or that's the way it was taught to me. I don't know what that means. That probably doesn't answer anything more. I guess the intangible values. But I mean, I really don't know because I don't even think spirituality, like, it even came from Christianity to begin with.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what it is because people keep using that word, and I think this is one of the biggest, and I'm not blaming you, obviously. I think this is one of the biggest bits of cheating that all religions or many religions have done, and that many believers do, because especially the people who are like, oh, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. Okay, great. What's that mean? I'm going to guarantee you that the person who called earlier, who said they were spiritual but not religious, I bet if I asked them to define spiritual, they would not say that it's the breath of God or intangible values. They might, but the cheat is, speaking of equivocation fallacies, Mr. Smartass caller from before, spiritual and spirituality is probably the greatest equivocation fallacy that gets passed around on a daily basis because we use that word, those who do, as a way of giving an impression that we agree on something where we definitely don't agree. And so if I say the word spiritual and you say the word spiritual and we don't dig in any deeper than that, the presumption is that in some way we're largely talking about the same thing. And we do that, hey, I'm a Christian, you're a Christian. Oh, awesome. Then we probably believe the same things. Well, we probably believe something similar or something close to it. And yet we know that there's a wide variety in these things. And so every time I hear spiritual, I'm just like, what does that mean? And in the same way that I'm confused by people who say that they believe things that they don't have good reason for and that they don't care about truth, I'm confused at people who can talk about their spirituality and not be able to say what it is. And I'm not trying to beat you up, Ethan. Matter of fact, I'm just greatly appreciative that we're able to have a conversation and you gave an answer. But holy crap, it's like, I get it. I am definitely the weird one. I'm probably somewhere on the spectrum with loads of ADHD and super weirdness and everything else, because the primary focus for me is this most likely true? Do I have good reason to believe it? And that is all contingent on what the hell does this word mean? What does God mean? What kind of God are we talking? That's why when Promise and I get people on here and they say they believe in God, one of the first questions that we always ask is, what are the characteristics of your God? What God are you talking about? Which God do you believe in order to get it narrowed down, because we recognize that word gets used to cover a lot of different gods. And the word spiritual gets used to cover a lot of different religious, pseudoscience, woo stuff, intangible, ineffable, indescribable feelings that nobody can seemingly justify as true. And to me, and here I am again as definitely the weird one, or in a group with the weird ones, that is on the list of things that are not like morally vile, but intellectually vapid and useless. Those are all at the top of that. The notion of, spirituality, equivocation fallacies, God, or, all of those things are useless to me until somebody says, here's what I mean by it. Here's how we can know it's true. And until then, it's not just a matter of, I'm not choosing to not believe. I just remain unconvinced. And for some reason, somehow, you became convinced either that spirituality is a real thing or that there's something about what people are describing as spirituality that is of some value, even if you don't know what it is, so you're going to continue pursuing it. I think we're probably closer to the latter, but I can't read minds, even though I pretend to on stage.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff like that can kind of just keep you moving forward, like walking by faith. That'll stop questions pretty quick.
Yeah, I'd like to test some people on walking by faith. Let's blindfold them, put a hood on it, stick them in a car. Oh, actually, we should do walking. Take them downtown, spin them around, and let them take off walking and see how long before they end up out in the street in front of a car or slamming into a post, a light post or a building.
If they can make it down my icy sidewalk with the snow without falling, then that would be some really great evidence.
God.
Yeah.
It's a miracle. Unfortunately, even though it wasn't icy, this is a complete distraction. Big love to my sister-in-law who fell and hurt herself on some uneven pavement, even though it wasn't icy. But I'm glad she's recovering. Anyway, sorry about that, Ethan. Continue.
Oh no, I don't think I had anything to say.
Okay. Ethan, if it's okay, I'll just add one more thing. A lot of this can also just come down to, like Matt said, reach out to Recovering from Religion. That's a great place to start. Your brain might just need a little bit of time to adjust to you finally getting to be honest about some of these things, because you are right. Indoctrination is so powerful. And I went through that time where I kind of had to like I'd go really hard one week on like reading as much as I could and asking all these questions. And then I'd just like give myself some time to not think about it for a week or so. And the cool thing is there's no rush. You're not going to like end up in atheist hell if you don't convert really quickly. It's okay to take your time. The only reason I want to encourage you to keep questioning and to really go for it is because I know that, at least for me on the other side of this, like free thought and becoming skeptical and caring about what's true made my life so much better. That shouldn't be the reason why you stop believing something. But that's just like the encouragement to add on to here, is that it opened up everything for me to where I finally got to make choices for myself, not based off of what I thought a God wanted me to do or what I thought religion wanted for me. I live life on my terms now. The one life that I think that I have. So that's the only rush here, is that so that you don't miss out on more in life. But in general, like, you're not going to hell. It's okay. I know there's that like feeling of like, I have to know, I have to get to it. I have to figure it out. And then I have to have like a good answer for my faith. You know, that indoctrination is still there, but it's okay to take your time.
I have a question, Ethan, if it's okay. How many times a week do you find yourself thinking about God, afterlife, hell, whatever?
I would say every day.
Okay. Multiple times a day?
Yeah.
Does it happen without warning, or does it happen related to some repeated experience? Like you get up thinking about this, or you might be off doing actual work, and right in the middle of work, all of a sudden you're worried about hell, or only when, you know, this conversation trigger happens. Do you have any idea of what's prompting the thoughts, or do they just seem to happen constantly?
I don't think I have any prompts. It does just pop in. So I think I told you I was in the military. When I got out of the military, I had to go, like after a while, I had to go into the hospital for PTSD and then CPTSD. Yeah. And it's kind of like the same thing as that. Like if you're talking about obsessive thoughts.
Yeah.
Is that? I'm sorry, I shouldn't jump ahead, but
no. You've answered it, and I'm going to stop here because we've moved way beyond anything that I have any business trying to assess or investigate. But I just say, yeah, I definitely recommend not just the Recovering from Religion, but the Secular Therapy Project, because to me, it sounds like there's definitely some religious trauma type stuff, and who knows what else it's connected with. And religions take advantage of your fears of your stress, of your difficulties. They often go after people when they are at their weakest and most in need. And the tool is often, ooh, let's provide some comfort. Let's provide hope, because everybody wants hope. And so we'll provide hope. And the problem is that what they may be providing, or they're seemingly provided, is false hope. And if you build your coping mechanisms, if you build the stable ground for your mental health on religious propositions, when you start realizing that there may not be any good reason to believe those, you begin to lose your ability to cope with the world. And you don't currently have other tools to do it, which may be why you're clinging to that religion instead of using something else. And so I would definitely recommend reaching out to the Psychotherapy Project to see if you can come up with secular tools, science-based tools that help you deal with the things that are going on in your head in a way that doesn't always have you collapsing into, oh, but what about hell? But what about God? But what about this? That's my best recommendation. I hope you continue asking questions. I hope you continue touching base with us. And I hope you find either the mechanisms that allow you to escape from the kind of religious indoctrination, cycle of guilt and abuse and shaming, or you find a way to say, I figured it out. This is the actual true one. And now I can, lean on this, and then let us know.
Okay. Well, I don't think I'll be figuring out the truth anytime soon, but I will definitely take everything else.
Well, not with that attitude. I'm kidding.
No.
I'm kidding. Thanks, Ethan.
Thanks so much, Ethan.
All right,
Have a great afternoon.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, take care.
Bye.
I can't see chat. I'm one of my new leafs is to largely ignore chat. When we get calls like that, I can tell you what we often see, which is people are like, oh, he's so close. He's going to be an atheist any day. And you may be right. I've also seen those predictions go wrong. I'd like to point out that not only is my goal not to make Ethan an atheist, that doesn't necessarily fix any of the things that may or may not be going on in Ethan's life. Because let me tell you, as a guy who's been at the forefront and the atheist community for a couple of decades now, there are some incredibly stupid, confused, bullshit believing, conspiracy theorist minded, pseudoscientific, woo peddling, wholly immoral, misogynistic, homophobic, transphobic, garbage people who are atheists. And the one thing that they tend to have in common is that they're the quickest ones to pat themselves on the back for getting what they think is the right answer to the world's easiest question, which is, which of these gods should I accept as real right now? And the answer is none. Congrats. Now I'm better than everybody. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Promise was arguing with atheists before she got on the show today. I argue with atheists more often than I argue with theists. This isn't about who's a better person or who's right or who's more moral or anything else. We're trying to figure out what's actually true and what is reasonable to believe is true here. And so my goal isn't necessarily to make anybody an atheist. What I'd like to make people is skeptics and humanists. And I think everything else will fix itself in the long run once those things are understood and accepted.
Yep, I concur. That's really good. And it's, to me, it sounds like, I mean, I think you nailed it with the advice that you offered, Ethan, but it does sound like he's logically reached a certain point, maybe even conclusion in some different ways, and maybe realizes like holding on to, I mean, he was saying it, that some of these ideas, he doesn't have a good reason to hold on to them, or these beliefs. But you're right, religious trauma can really mess you up. It can really mess up your brain. And if you don't have the proper tools to replace the coping mechanism that it gave you, this shortcut to like comfort, then you can be left flailing. And that's scary to let go of, which is what I find myself frustrated with atheists about, is when they're just so keen to get somebody to admit that you're wrong. And they forget that there's also still this human that has to live with whatever they figure out and whatever tools they have at their disposal once they, quote, figure it out.
Whoops, I'm in the wrong one.
Hey,
You
Do
can
we,
go ahead and pick
do we
our
have
next one.
theists?
before we take our next call, I'm seeing that there is about 1,800 people live, excuse me, viewing the show right now. If you guys
Ooh,
can go ahead and click
like
that
it.
like button, it helps the channel get in front of more eyes so we can get more theists to call in. So please give us a like, consider subscribing, checking out our merch and all that awesome stuff, and support us on patreon.com/calltheline. Thank you.
Yes, all of that. Are we still doing our mug competition or is that over?
The competition part is over.
But you can
and
still order the mugs, right?
yes, I think you can still order the mugs at this moment. I'm not sure how much longer that's gonna last.
Okay. Who won?
I think it was Jimmy. Jimmy's mug won. Feels
Man,
rigged, right?
it does
It does
feel
feel rigged,
rigged.
but I will say the peekaboo through the hole in the hand, it's a great
pretty
idea
good.
and a
It
good
was pretty good.
design. It's funny. I mean, I don't want to give Jimmy too much credit, but I am going to buy his mug.
It's pretty good. I like yours.
Thank you. It has a
should
lot
I-
of uses that don't necessarily tie to the show.
I was about to say it's very like I can picture myself using that all the time, especially before I've had my coffee. Should we give you a quick break and I'll start talking with the next caller?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be right back.
All right. I'm gonna, oh, look, now you guys can see my house isn't messy. That's just like cluttered. Let's talk to Emilio. Emilio, hi, you are live on the line with Promise. Matt will be right with us. I will say, so it says here, you say Jesus was real, truth matters, Christianity couldn't have developed without the Jesus character. There's multiple claims happening there. I'll start with the Jesus was real thing. I think that Jesus, in some form or another, was probably real. I don't really care about that. I care if Jesus was a god or not. So, do you think that Jesus was a god? Do you think Jesus performed supernatural things? Which part of the Jesus claims do you believe? Emilio, you might have to tap your. Maybe I did all of that for nothing. You might have to tap your phone. Hello, Arden. You can't hear Emilio, can you?
No, yeah, caller, you need to pull your phone away from your face and tap it to wake it up, and pull the browser back up if you need to as well. The web caller client, if you're using your phone, goes quiet on us.
Maybe we'll put Emilio back in the.
Yep, put him back in the queue.
Ding.
Matt's actually back as well, so.
Great. That went nowhere, Matt, so you missed nothing.
Aw.
Let's chat with Buzz. I feel like have we spoken before? Maybe not.
Hello.
Hey Buzz, you are live on the line with Matt and Promise. How are you?
Hey guys, I'm really good. How are you guys?
Pretty
Good,
good. What's
thanks.
your question for us today?
So I'm an atheist, and I often get into arguments about existence of God. And I wanted to know if the agnostic position that I don't know if there's a creator, I don't know if there's a God, is a bad position. Because what happens is often when trying to argue with people who know their stuff, like they know arguments, how to make rational arguments, then they will get to that position. But other people don't really understand why things like regression and all the premises for cosmological argument may be flawed. So, is it okay to just grant that maybe there's a creator, maybe there's a God, and then ask the person, like, why do you think that that God exists now? Right? Or am I putting myself into a trap by doing something like this?
I wouldn't worry so much about a trap. I mean, you should be able at any time to make it clear, hey, let me just go ahead and accept this part of your argument and see if you can make a case for getting from that part to the specifics. Quite often we get callers on the show who, while they believe in a specific God, like a God of Christianity, the only thing they ever want to defend is some abstract notion of a creator God. And so it can be useful to say, okay, let's assume for a second that we both believe that there's some creative force that made the universe. How then could we conclude that you're correct about the nature and desires and it's fine to do that for the sake of argument. There's no trap. There's no trap in acknowledging that you don't know something, and there's no trap in accepting something on the condition that let's move past that to see where we could get if that were the case. Hypotheticals aren't a problem.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, well, is there anything else like how would you tackle the cosmological argument if someone brings it up if they are just less educated about fallacies? Like, how do I go about it?
I would, if somebody doesn't really understand logical arguments and fallacies, I wouldn't be having logical arguments with them at all until we stopped and said, hey, we need to get some basics down about making sure we're on the same page about how reasoning works. That, if an argument is fallacious, that doesn't mean the conclusion is false. It means we cannot reasonably think that it's true. And so if you presented an argument that has a fallacy, then we cannot reasonably accept that your conclusion is true. It might still be true. And you need to include all aspects of that so that they know you're not, when you say argument from ignorance, people who don't know fallacies think you're just calling them stupid, because to them, stupid and ignorant mean the same thing, and that's not the case. And when you say your argument is fallacious, people who don't understand fallacies think that you're just saying you're wrong. That's false. And what you're really saying is that the conclusion cannot reasonably be accepted as true. And so you have to take the time and teach that. Whenever there is a foundational piece missing to understanding it, you have to go back and address that, which is why in the earlier call with Adam, Adam was desperate to know, what evidence would you accept for God? Which is a preposterous question, because in order for us to figure out what evidence we would accept, we would need a definition of the God and an understanding of how that God interacts with the world. So we need all the facets of that claim. And then we would have to sit down and say, okay, what sort of thing would be sufficient? And we may not be able to come up with an example, but the important thing is Adam has come up with some reason. And so now the only issue is, are we going to accept his reason, or are we going to identify that it's fallacious? Which is why we're like, how does an event occurring twice 1 year apart confirm that it was caused by Jesus? And when you get them back to where the only thing they can say is what Adam did, which is, well, my argument's more convincing, you can point out, well, it's more convincing to you. It's not convincing to Promise. Promise is convinced it's Athena. It's not convincing to Hindus. It's not convincing to Muslims. It's not, you can't look at the same facts and come to different conclusions and say yours is right if you don't care about right, if you don't care about showing it's right. So you have to take some time and maybe if they're not ready to have the conversation about, it's like, how can you have a discussion about whether or not these two species have a common ancestor if you don't already understand the process by which we could identify a common ancestor? That by doing genetic testing, we can find, hey, look, chromosome 2 merged, and that's how we know we share common ancestry with the other great apes. Or here's the genetic testing that shows, yes, this particular individual carries these genes, which are tied to this, and you build a case for it. It is a mesh, a network of true claims built into a big web based on other true claims. And yes, some bad claims are going to get in there, but you have to teach that sometimes.
Yeah, I think I do agree that there's no other way than to teach them some of the basics.
I would say it's far more important to give somebody a good understanding of logical reasoning and skepticism than it is to give them an understanding of why you don't accept their God argument. Because if you teach them reasoning and skepticism and they value it and they care about what's true, then all the other conversations become much easier. And at the end of the day, you can just be like, okay, now that you understand this, what's your skeptical argument for the existence of a God. Oh, you don't have one? Neither do I, and that's why I'm not convinced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that does make sense. I had another question, if that's fine.
Yeah, I'm going
a
to
bit
be quiet and
unrelated
let
to this
Promise
first
answer.
one.
But
Yeah, so I'm from India, and we are having some issues regarding communal violence and stuff like that. And what I see here is less people are trying to approach atheism, but find themselves in groups which they call like ex-Hindu, ex-Muslim, ex-Christian, and what they are driven by is hate for their own community rather than rationality, science, or secularism, right? So, how, since you guys have built such a good community out there in US, what would you suggest is a good way to start something similar in India? Do you have
I
any
don't know.
suggestions for that?
I wouldn't say that we have like some amazing community over here. There's all kinds of communities. There's also a lot of atheists that are just kind of doing their own thing, and they're, as Matt pointed out earlier, they are, you know, anti-human rights in a lot of cases, and they're not skeptics. And the main thing is they're not humanists. So I think that that's a great way to build some sort of community, or to have what I think you're getting at, to have these kinds of conversations and to have something to rally around, which would be secular humanism. And there might even be some humanist groups already near you. I would look into that. But I think that that's a worthy cause, and you don't have to be an atheist to be part of that. There can be, you can have your agnostics, your just non-believers, or whatever they call themselves. Because as we know, like, being an atheist doesn't mean you agree on anything with your fellow atheists other than you don't believe that a God exists. So that isn't something you can really build. Like, I don't want to be in a community with somebody just because they don't believe a God exists, Because as you pointed out, people can rally around that and then just like hating other groups of people. And that's never a good thing to build on. So I would look into secular humanism and seeing if there's any humanist groups.
Okay, so rather than just looking for atheists, I should look for people that align on other things that matter to me, right?
Yes. Yep. Look for shared values.
Yeah.
Look for, positives rather than just a lack of belief in something. Because I think if you just want to have conversations about atheism, that's easy to find online and stuff like that. But that's not who you're like. If you don't have shared values, then that conversation only goes so far.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. This was great. This was my first time, and it was fun. Thank you.
Thanks so much for calling.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right. We've got Emilio back from earlier. So let's see if we can get this to work.
Oh my gosh, I'm so disappointed.
Hello?
We had a
Hey, Emilio, you are live with Matt and Promise.
Can you hear me, guys? Sorry, I just have a little bit of problem before.
No, it's okay. We can hear you now.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, guys. And well, first of all, I've been following your program for a couple of months now. I think it's very interesting. Thank you for taking my call. And since we care about the truth, and I consider myself, I was a Catholic, raised as a Catholic, and on Mexico, I came to Montreal. But since I was a kid, I always had like questions about like religion and stuff. So I'm always trying to search for the truth, to see what's possible and what's not possible based on what we've been told since we were kids. And I think that about like after some research, I think that Jesus was real, but full with a lot of fantasy and mythology to just create the Roman Catholic religion around the character. And this is what makes me believe, and a couple of other texts from Josephus that mentions Christ, Jesus Christ, that he was real, and that the Catholic religion was built around it. But
I don't believe that Jesus was a God. I don't believe that Jesus was like supernatural or whatever they are saying on the Bible, on the
Yeah,
gospel.
I'll
think
just I'll pause you real quick. I'm not sure what your question is that you're getting to, but I think there's various hosts of us that think, yeah, sure, maybe Jesus was a real guy, and maybe there's some that don't think that. But the main point is, like you said, none of us think that Jesus was a god or did anything supernatural. So I don't know if you have like a main question you're getting to.
The thing with me is about like I don't believe in any of the gods that are portrayed the way they are portrayed by any of the religions, but I believe in spirituality.
Oh my gosh!
On building my spirituality, but it's spirituality. I'm not saying spirituality about gods. I'm saying about what
what does that mean?
I got lots of questions, but also you mentioned that you believe Jesus was real because of Flavius Josephus, who wasn't even born until after Jesus supposedly died.
No, but he was an historian. And
no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was still talking.
Yeah.
Josephus was not an eyewitness, was not a contemporary of Jesus, and there's no reason to think that he actually met or interacted with contemporaries or eyewitnesses of Jesus. And one of the two passages in Josephus's history book is almost certainly a forgery. It is at least disputed in its authenticity. And so at the end of the day, that Josephus does not confirm Jesus. Josephus confirms that Christians believed there was a Jesus. And if you're going to use Josephus as the one and only thing you start with mentioning for Jesus, not only does Josephus not confirm the existence of Jesus, if anything, if you're to use it that way, it's just as likely that he's confirming the miracles that you want to dismiss, because he's saying there are Christians who believed this stuff.
And well, from the text I read from Josephus, he didn't mention like miracles. It says that there's an interpretation, and that was modified from a version of Josephus. That the scholars, they don't think that he wrote what they said that he wrote. He just mentions like Jesus Christ.
I'm sorry, but you're wrong. I'm sorry, but you're wrong. Here, let me read to you from the Antiquities what Josephus supposedly wrote that is disputed as a fabrication, and it's disputed for good reason, because what that passage says is, about this time there lived Jesus, a wise man, if indeed one ought to call him a man, for he was one who performed surprising deeds and was a teacher of such people as accept the truth gladly. He won over many Jews and many of the Greeks. He was the Messiah. And when, upon the accusation of the principal men among us, Pilate had condemned him to a cross, those who had first come to love him did not cease. He appeared to them, spending a third day restored to life, for the prophets of God had foretold these things. And 1,000. How dare you suggest that Joseph isn't suggesting a confirmation of miracles when he literally says he did amazing deeds? It might not be worthy to call him a man. He was the Messiah. He was restored to life. These are all miracles. You're misrepresenting what's even in Josephus, and what's in Josephus is disputed, if not an obvious forgery, since Josephus cannot be a Jew who calls Jesus the Messiah without being a Christian.
Yeah,
so
if you read
you've got a lot of confusion on this subject.
Flavian, yeah, that's what it says, but there's some other stuff, and this is what I really care about Josephus at some point, because there's an Arabic version of that text that was discovered lately, that instead of he was the Christ, it says he was perhaps the Messiah. And many historians believe that this version is closer to what Josephus originally wrote.
I'm sorry that you presented a bad example, and now you're going, after being called out on it, now you're going to say, well, there's another version. Yes, that one's also fucking disputed. None of them are sufficient to reach the conclusion that Jesus even existed. And I have no problem with the notion that Jesus existed. What I have a problem with is shitty arguments. And when somebody says they're convinced that Jesus existed because of Josephus, that is absolutely insufficient.
No, I said that Josephus was just one
I'm
part.
sorry. I don't know why you're continuing on this. Can we talk about spirituality now? Since you talked about spirituality, I don't know what that is.
The matter was, like I said, like I believe Jesus was real because
I
not
don't
only
give a
because of
shit.
Josephus.
I don't give a shit what you believe. I don't care if you believe that Jesus was real, especially when your reason for believing Jesus is real is as unsupported and fallacious as that one is. Would you like to talk about spirituality? Because I'm not interested in book reports from people who are convinced of something that is irrelevant and they use bad reasoning to do it.
All right, then we disagree on. I disagree.
It's not a matter of disagreeing.
Right.
You are factually wrong. Would you like to talk about spirituality now?
I don't have like any proof of spirituality and stuff, or other than.
Do you care whether or not it's true?
I just think that my spirituality, the way I perceive my spirituality, is different from other spirituality, and you just have to do with God.
What is it? How do you perceive spirituality? I don't know how many times I can ask you the same question without getting an answer.
Okay, probably use the wrong word. I don't mean spirituality as that, as being like a spirit or a free spirit. I just think that it's something that has to do with your own being wealth and how you feel about your morality and how you interact with the rest of humanity in terms of your interaction with other people and being tolerant on what they believe and really being conscious about your actions and what you're doing and what you're doing for being a better person, not only for you, but for the people that surround you in a way that you are happy with yourself.
Why are we calling it spirituality? Because I would call that just like, for me, that's secular humanism does all of that for me, from what I remember what you just said.
Sorry, I was saying that was probably the wrong word that I used from spirituality, because it's
wrong
not
word, wrong source, wrong topic.
Well, I think the problem is the word spiritual is just so, it's kind of like when I hear somebody say faith, it means something different each person I ask. So I love when people will actually just say what it is that they mean, like, which is what you just went into, which is, it's the part of myself that cares about this, and that, or whatever it may be. I guess, I don't know if Matt has more questions for you. I don't know if you want to get into if you believe in a God or not. It says you're agnostic, but I don't know if you're convinced that a God exists or if you're not convinced.
I don't know if there is a God. Like all the evidence that from this world, and what I think, it doesn't point that there is a God at all. I haven't seen any evidence that, of a God. Everything points that there is not a God. But
do you believe that there's a God?
Not really as a God, as an entity that is just looking. You say like a God of what we understand of a God. Just I don't fall again like in spirituality. No, I don't believe there is a God. But
is your spirituality in any way supernatural?
I don't think it's supernatural. I think
it seems like what you described as spirituality is a metaphor for individual character and persona.
I think it's more that in alignment with that.
Okay.
I have other personal beliefs and stuff that has nothing to do with God and the way they describe about good or evil, or if God was good or the devil is evil. I don't believe in all these things. I just think that there's just ways of people to control other people based on their fears, and just to put someone above. Like, for example, if I can go back to Jesus and why I believe that Jesus at some point was really like elevated to a God position that I don't believe at all.
But Emilio, real quick, I don't know if you heard me when you called earlier when Matt wasn't here, but I opened the call with saying, I don't really care if Jesus existed or not. I care if he was a God and if he did all the things that the Bible claims that he did. And so I'm not sure what your point is. If you're just calling in to tell us that you're not a believer, but you think Jesus existed, okay, I don't know what to do with that. But it sounds like Matt has a question.
I think that my call is because I want to express what I've been looking, and since you guys really have been following you, I'm in my search still for answers. So this is what you know, like my whole life I've been like, struggling. Yeah, sorry.
Do we have any good reason to think we know any specific thing that Jesus ever said, even if he existed?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't think.
Do we have any good reason? Do we have any good reason to think that we know any specific thing Jesus actually did while he was alive, if he was alive?
No, I mean it's the same as we were saying.
So
it's the same, it's the same as
these
someone...
are yes or no's that are leading up to a point. If we have no good reason to think that we have any single statement or deed from him that we can confirm, then even if he existed, it's irrelevant. So why do you care whether or not Jesus existed?
I care because what I'm seeing, what's happening with recently with Christians and Catholics and attacking each other and stuff, and then just portraying these flags that Christianity is a true religion. No, it's like you know, Muslim. It's a true religion and all these things. On really these struggles of power about fiction that was presented to us since we were kids and trying to get to a dogma to believe stuff that it's really hurting us, rather than if we are atheists or theists or agnostics or whatever.
Emilio, if your reason for caring is that there's conflict between believers, and all you can do is say you think he's real, but you don't know anything he said or did, how does that solve the conflict?
No, it doesn't solve anything. I mean, even like my call right now.
Then I ask you again, why you called in to say Jesus was real? It's true. It's important. And then when I asked you, we don't know anything about him. We don't know anything he did. We don't know anything he said. And your justification for thinking he's real is insufficient. But even if we were to grant that he was real, my point is, why should we care? And you say you care because Christians and Catholics are attacking each other. And then I said, okay, how does him being real with nothing known about him fix the problem? It doesn't. So I'm back to the question, why should anybody give a fuck if somebody who we cannot verify anything they ever said or did actually existed?
I give a fuck because I see people are trying to push other like rhetorics and stuff about some characters that we don't have any, as you said, any real statement of like evidence or
why
stuff. Why
is it important, Emilio? Why is it important to say that he was real when you can't prove it and you don't know anything about him? How does that fix anything?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. This doesn't fix anything at all.
Okay, there's a waste of time.
I think it was just the way I try, the way I put.
Complete waste of time.
Yeah, probably. But it was nice talking. It was nice talking to you. I mean, you really came with a lot of things and really make me think about more stuff in a good way. And for that, I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'm glad we
Thanks, Emilio.
Reached a point. Yeah, it's like saying, I'm really upset about the fascists taking over, so I want to tell everybody that Paul Bunyan is real. Well, even if Paul Bunyan is real, how does that fix the fascist takeover? Well, it doesn't, but it was important for me to say, yes, but yeah.
Also, you'll find that a Christian isn't going to be excited that you're like, well, I do think Jesus probably was real, because what they care about is, do you think that he rose from the dead and was a god and all of this stuff? If you don't go past that point, it doesn't really help them much.
Yeah, I think, and hopefully my mythicist friends will eventually see this. I'm going to push back just as hard on theists or atheists asserting that Jesus was in fact real as I am on mythicists asserting that he was in fact not real. if the correct answer is we don't have good reason to believe this individual existed with any good data about them at all. That's a problem enough. Like the fact that there's even an open question or concern, that is the point of focus. You want to help fix the problem? You go to those people who are struggling about, well, Jesus said this. No, he didn't. He said this. Hey, neither one of you know what Jesus said. You can't even prove that he existed. You just assume it as a default, and then you assume all the things that come with it. Whether he existed or not, you don't know anything he did. You don't know anything he said. You hear a bunch of stuff secondhand from copies of translations of copies of oral traditions where you can't even verify who said anything. You can't interview anybody. If your God existed, your God is the dumbest being ever to reveal itself privately to individuals in languages that change and die out, in oral traditions that get modified, in books that don't have originals and you don't know who wrote them. And it wouldn't matter if you did know who wrote them because you can't investigate any of this. The notion that your God is out there playing the world's longest, most obfuscated game of telephone is absolute evidence that your truth is completely indistinguishable from its fictional status. That's why you guys aren't doing anything. But we'll try, because I'm still on, we got a caller here who's wanting to talk about spirituality, religion, and atheism, and maybe we'll get a definition of spirituality that isn't just a metaphor for being a decent person. Maybe not.
Let's find out.
I figured you were doing
Oh, should I? I got it. Okay.
Cool.
I have suspicions about this call. And let's see. Hello there. You are live on the line with Promise and Matt.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
How do we say your name the right way?
Eva.
Gaba.
Have we spoken with you before?
Eva. No.
Okay, great. So go ahead. What's your evidence for God?
I have evidence for God.
I got a question for you, actually, a
direct.
different question. Wait, real quick. So you believe in a God. Do you think that God is okay with lying?
Yes.
You think God is okay if you lie?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's good news for you, I guess. Go ahead, Adam.
I don't know why we should take your word for anything then.
It's a very short and straight to the point proof of God.
Let's hear it.
Jesus Christ said to Faustina Kowalska that
Hi, Adam.
anybody who prays divine mercy rosary.
I'm gonna mute you. I promise I'm gonna let you finish, because I was actually mildly looking forward to this. It's pretty disgusting that you decided you needed to lie and treat us as if we're fucking stupid. But I'm going to set all that aside. For those who don't know, this is the same caller that we talked to earlier, lying about who they actually are. And it is obviously Adam, who also called in as Catholic something, who is now calling in under a different name and actively lying. I should have you list the commandments before we take anything from you. But according to Adam, he has a prayer that will convince us that God exists. I'm going to ask one question, and then we'll go on from there to the prayer. So, Adam, is it the case that you claim to have a prayer that Promise and I can pray right now that will prove that God exists? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to pause and I'm going to take notes. I would like for you to tell us that prayer right now and nothing else. Go for it.
It is the divine mercy rosary. Jesus Christ promised to Faustina Kowalska that anybody who prays that
I'm sorry,
rosary
Adam.
only
I'm
once,
sorry, Adam. I desperately tried. I tried to treat you like you weren't a fucking lying piece of shit fraud. I told you you needed to tell us that prayer and only that prayer. That prayer doesn't need you to tell us who you think Jesus fucking told it to. Do not ever call me again. I'm going to look up the Divine Mercy Prayer. You are a shit representative of Catholicism. You are a shit representative of Christianity. You are a garbage caller who is now banned from my show for being a repeated, lying, monstrously lying piece of garbage that is wasting everybody's time. You have no interest in demonstrating the truth of your claims. Your only interest is in wasting my time. Well, guess how much more of my time you're ever going to waste, motherfucker? All right. Let's get on to a real theist while I look up the Divine Mercy Rosary.
I have a rosary too I can pull out if that's
I've
gonna
got one too,
help.
and I wasn't even Catholic. And not that you were, but
I wasn't either, yeah. Do you want me to pull up the next call while
yeah,
you're
go
looking
ahead.
that up?
Go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah, I
great.
want to get on to some good stuff instead of wasting time.
Yeah, let's talk to Todd. Hello, Todd. You are live with Promise and Matt.
Hi, how are you guys?
Exhausted. How are you?
Well, I'm sorry for that last call, Matt. Sorry that there are dishonest people claiming to be theists, but I have an issue with the people that they deny that Christ existed, and I'm not going to try to make a case for Christ because I've heard those already
I'm sorry, Todd.
waiting on hold.
Todd.
Yes, sir.
Neither one of us are here denying Christ existed, so that's not really relevant to us. I have no idea whether or not Jesus existed. So if you've got a problem with people denying it, you need to take it up with them.
Okay. Well, my point, I told the call screener that the witnesses of the crucifixion who went on to be persecuted, imprisoned, and even executed, to hold on to a belief like that when you're facing, losing your life essentially, I mean, I think that is a pretty convincing case for the existence of Christ. And I heard Promise ask earlier, hey,
I don't.
Was Christ divine?
I not only don't, but you're talking about claims and not evidence. So I don't think the fact that people were martyred for their belief is evidence that the belief is true. That's certainly maybe evidence that they either believed that it was true or that they believed there was value in acting as if it was true. But that isn't confirmation or sufficient evidence to conclude the belief was true. But also the stories that you have about these supposed witnesses of a supposed crucifixion are coming from the same sources that are unverifiable as well. There's no way to confirm. I have no problem with the notion that Jesus may or may not have existed, but there's no way to confirm a crucifixion or a resurrection or eyewitnesses to any of it. So what you have are stories, and you're saying you find the stories, even though you can't verify them, convincing that the stories are true, and I don't.
Well, sir, I beg to differ. I mean, we know
you can beg all you want. You can
it.
beg all you want, but the copies of the Gospels that we have were not necessarily written by eyewitnesses. We don't know who wrote them, and we have no way of investigating it. Do you? Do you have some way of investigating the stories in the Gospels to verify their authenticity?
Anonymous authors. I have a Bible in a church I went 2 years ago that in the beginning it says that the Gospels.
Todd.
Yes, sir.
Todd, do you think for a second that we're unaware of what the Bible says? I mean, both of us were Christians. I was studying to be a pastor. I'm asking you what independent confirmation you have, what evidence do you have that the stories in the Bible are true?
Well, I'm looking at more indirect evidence of the fact that it was true as far as
so you're saying you don't have any. So you're saying you don't have any. Why won't you just say you don't have any?
Well, sir, that sounds like a defeatist approach to say I don't have any because I have plenty.
Yes, because you're defeated, Todd. Your view is defeated in rational discourse. You are not able to present an evidence-based argument to support your position. You just have to be like, I'm going to trust the Bible. I'm going to trust the history. I'm going to trust all the people who believed this before. I'm going to go with the norm. Well, some of us want better evidence than that, because if we went with the norm and we were born in a different place and surrounded by different believers, we'd be Hindus, we'd be Muslims, we'd be all number of things. I care about what's actually true and not what is about potentially comforting and what my family thinks is true. Thanks for admitting that you've been defeated. Do you have anything useful?
Well, I would understand that if I was or was going to say, if I was born in Palestine, I would still like to think I would have found Christ. I'd still
Okay,
be a
you can
Christian. But
imagine all you
disagree
want, but
with
I
you on
don't
that,
care
sir.
about your speculative imagining. I want you to defend your position
I also
with
find that,
reasoned evidence, not, I think I would have found Christ anyway.
yeah, you
Well,
think you'd be better than everybody else?
good for
That's
you.
wild.
No, I'm not better. I'm a mere follower. That's all I am.
Yes, you are. You are
Yes,
a
I'm a
that's-
follower.
follower.
You are a
of Christ.
sheep. You are a sheep that will not question the story, will not learn how to investigate, and doesn't care about standards of evidence. You are defeated. How does that feel?
What about Paul's letters when
Well,
he
how does
wrote
that
about
feel?
the actual?
How does that feel to be so utterly defeated, to be so utterly abandoned by your God that you confidently call into a show where we know who you are to basically say, I don't have anything other than the stories, but I find it compelling?
Matt, why are you so angry?
I'm so angry because
God.
I've asked you to present evidence and you're acknowledging you don't have any, but you won't just say it. I'm angry because this stuff matters. I'm angry because I don't think you're honest, first of all. I can tell by the snarkiness, which just irritates me right off the bat. But the problem is that what you're advocating for is something that does not stand up to reasoned inquiry, and you'd like to pretend that it does. And I'm not going to allow
I can
that.
assure you that I am quite honest. I would beg to differ with you there, too.
Okay,
I'm calling
so
for a real case about real witnesses who lost their lives for their belief.
Todd, do you have a reasoned, evidence-based argument that we should accept for Jesus being divine?
How about the empty tomb?
I'm not
I've
aware
been
that there is an
to-
empty
yeah.
tomb, nor is there any evidence that an empty tomb demonstrates that someone is divine. How does an empty tomb show that someone is divine?
For the record, I've been to Israel. I've been
He
to the
was at
two.
witness. He
I've
ascended into
been
heaven after walking amongst his followers.
Todd. I've
Todd's a
been to
liar.
the two. I've been to the two empty tombs in Israel because they have different ones that they claim. And here I am, an atheist. There's no evidence whatsoever that anybody was even in those tombs to begin with, or that they raised from the dead, or that it was
They found
Jesus.
some of the bodies of Jesus's family. They found
No.
his brother's bones.
No. No, they didn't.
This is how
And
I know
even-
you're
even
a
if they
complete,
did.
you're a complete, I'm going to mute him. Todd, you're a complete fucking fraud. I'm going to bring you back in just a minute. You are completely busted. I've done this for 20 years. I am able to detect authentic versus inauthentic people based on not only when they decide to stay quiet, which is obvious to everybody, what questions they decide to ask when it's clear that they don't have any evidence, and the things that they try to claim as a mix. It's like there are Protestant beliefs and there are Catholic beliefs, and they don't mix in certain areas. For example, Protestants don't believe that the Eucharist, which they wouldn't call the Eucharist generally anyway, actually turns into the body of Christ. But Catholics believe in transubstantiation, and that in some sense or another it does. And when you come in with a mix of doctrines, in this case, you're talking about an ossuary that is a disputed thing that James Cameron and some other people popped up suggesting, oh, they found Jesus' body. I'm going to ask you one quick question, and then after that, I'd like you to explain, what do you get out of calling in to lie and pretend? And so the question I'm going to ask you is, let's say we found a tomb with bodies. How would you know that they were Jesus's family? Your turn.
Well, I would think they would use DNA evidence. I would think they would probably maybe use some kind of genealogy.
Todd, do we have any DNA evidence? Todd, do we have any DNA collected from people in the first century? And do we have any that we can confirm are Jesus's family? The answer is no. I'm not nearly as stupid as you think I am. Why do you call in to lie and pretend? What do you get out of this?
So if my case isn't convincing and I call in, you can just call me a liar.
No, Todd. It's not about a convincing case. It's about saying things that are absolutely stupider than you could be given the way you're saying them. I've done this for a long time. I'm going to give you exactly one chance when I'm done asking this question to give me an answer. And then if it's not the right answer, I'm going to ban your phone number. What do you get out of calling in to lie and pretend to defend things that you don't actually bother to defend and probably don't believe? What are you getting out of this?
There's no right answer to that because I don't believe I'm lying.
Okay.
I'm giving
How did you get to
straight,
be
I'm
so
giving you straight
absolutely
heartfelt
ridiculous
facts from the
then?
Bible, sir.
How do you get to be so absolutely ridiculous and dishonest in communication that when asked for evidence and asked for justification, you instead bounce around to excuses?
Sir, I ask you again, why are you so angry? I called to have a civil conversation, and you're
You're a
yelling at me
liar.
and threatening
You're a
to
liar,
ban me.
Todd. I'm not angry anymore. I'm in the best mood all day because I'm fucking miles smarter than you. And I've just exposed you as a liar. And all you can do instead of presenting evidence is, sir, why are you so angry? I'm not angry. You've made my day, Todd. You have absolutely, no, you have absolutely, I'm going to mute you for a second. You have absolutely made my day because we're coming up on the end of the show. We need to get some more callers in here. By the way, unless Arden's closed the line, I didn't check. But Promise and I, we take time out of our day. Promise is up incredibly late at night right now. Is halfway around the world, et cetera. And we take time out of our day because we were sincere believers who understand that if this stuff is true, it would be the most important thing anyone could know. There is no bit of information, no story, no narrative, nothing that could possibly be more important than confirmation of a God and what that God wants. And some of us, Promise and I in particular, are former sincere believers. And we come from different backgrounds, and we work with people who come from a lot of different backgrounds and who spend our lives studying this so that we don't show up to make the absolute worst argument, so that when you show up and the people who you are mocking and misrepresenting, when they show up with bad arguments, we have an opportunity to say, here, this isn't true, or this is a bad argument, or here's a fallacy, or whatever else. Because unlike you, when I'm asked, why do you believe something? I give my reason. And if somebody points out that my reason is actually fallacious or founded on a premise that isn't true, I don't just say, oh yeah, but what about what Paul said? Oh yeah, well, what about the empty tomb? I've got an empty box. Does that mean your brain used to be in it, but it escaped? Because I don't think it was ever in there. And I'm starting to doubt whether or not it's actually in your head at all. We're here doing important things because we live on a planet where billions of people believe things and are fighting over it and voting on its behalf in ways that violate people's rights, invade countries, kill people, deny due process, cut off young girls' clitorises, circumcise routinely infant kids, deny homosexuals, transgender people the basic human rights and dignity that they have, deny women rights, deny all kinds of things. This is absolutely incredibly important. And instead of actually defending your supposed claim that it's true, instead, you're going to waste all of our time by being a dishonest, smug, prickish, lying interlocutor. I don't believe you're a real Christian, so you're not doing harm to Christians. You haven't done any harm to the skeptics or atheist movement at all. All you've done is shown that you can sit around and be a piece of shit in conversation and are completely incapable of having an honest conversation, even when you've been called out and exposed. I mean, I could put a poll up, and the poll would absolutely agree that Todd from Arizona, whose phone number I've jotted down, not so that I can give it out to anybody, but so that I can note it for when you call me again, exactly who I'm dealing with, that Todd is absolutely dishonest and or dumber than a fence post. Because instead of doing anything like he's supposed to do, 1 Peter 3:15 tells you to be prepared at all times to give the reason for the faith that's within you. And to give the reason, by the way, the Greek word there, you can go look it up, is logos, which doesn't just mean point to Jesus. It's specifically referring to sound logical arguments here, or as best as you can get. what about the open tomb isn't an argument. What about the open tomb is you essentially suggesting that there's a claim that is sufficient when we all know that claim. Which open tomb? How do you know which open tomb is the right one? You have no way of knowing. How do you know the family they found with Jesus? Oh, you think there's DNA evidence. You're either too stupid to have a conversation with, since there was no knowledge of DNA and no way to gather DNA. We don't know what Jesus's DNA was. We don't know what Jesus's family's DNA was. And even if they found it, they'd have no way of confirming it was Jesus, because we still don't even have a way to confirm that Jesus existed. Part of me would like to just hang up now, knowing that you've had to sit there and listen to the entirety of it. But that would be potentially rude to the audience that likes to see me play with my food before I eat it. And it would also be rude to Promise to not let her potentially find a way to rehabilitate this conversation so that Todd can prove that I'm the problem. So let's see if Todd can prove that I'm the problem, rather than his complete lack of evidence, honesty, or sound argument is the problem. Let's see how that goes. Welcome back, Todd. You're on with Promise.
Well, you say all kinds of vile things to me, and you're going to call me the liar.
Todd,
and you're making
Todd,
assertions that I'm
Todd,
lying,
nobody
and you're
said
calling me the
anything.
liar.
Nobody said anything violent, so now
he said
you're
vile.
lying.
Sorry, not violent.
Vile. Okay,
Vile.
good. Vile. Okay. Todd, do
Sir,
you want to have the conversation?
I called up to have a nice
Todd, do you wanna-
conversation with you.
Todd, do you
and
want to
you
have
sat
the
there and cussed
conversation with me,
out,
or
and
do you want to go?
questioned my
Or
faith.
is me being a woman going to bother you? I don't know if you're that kind of Christian. Do you want to have the
No, I'm
conversation
not.
with me, or do you want to just talk about how you're upset with Matt?
I called to
Because
have
I
an
want to
honest
have the conversation.
with the both of you.
Okay, I'm going to mute you. I would like to have the conversation now. I haven't talked to you yet. So my question for you is, why do you believe that a God exists?
I believe a God exists based off everything I've ever read, everything I ever grew up learning, from all the complexity of the universe
Okay,
around me. There are many reasons why I believe in God.
So let's try this. Do you think that I should believe a God exists? Do you think that anybody should believe
If
that a
you
God
care
exists?
about where you're going after this life, you should absolutely believe.
Great. Okay, so help me then. If you think I'm going to go to hell right now for not believing, help me believe. What are some reasons I should hear to convince me that a God exists?
Well, I guess they'd be more personal. You'd have to read the Bible and discover that for yourself. And I know you're going to say you were a Christian already. You and Matt were Christians already.
Todd, if you keep talking over me, I'm going to hang up on you, because that's really frustrating. Correct. I read the Bible so many times. It's the first book I read all the way through. I started reading it that's how I learned how to read, was reading Bible verses. That's how I learned how to write, was writing Bible verses. I was homeschooled using a Christian curriculum. I was in ministry school when I stopped believing that a God exists, because I so badly wanted to help other people understand that God is real and that he loves them and that they're going to go to heaven and all this stuff. So you're right. I am going to let you know that, because you just told me that my reason for believing should be to go read the Bible for myself. I've done that. So next, please.
Well, can I say something? I want to say that me trying to convince you or Matt is a very difficult task, considering you are both well-read, more educated on this subject. Clearly, that's the case. I'm not disputing that.
There are other people, so don't focus on us. There are other people. There are thousands of people listening, and this video will be available. It could go to millions if you're able to provide evidence for the existence of a God. So explain to the class why they should believe that a God exists. What is your best evidence for the existence of a God?
My absolute best evidence, not talking about Christ or the crucifixion or the witnesses who died after, dying for their faith and their belief. My absolute best evidence is the first uncaused cause. That to me is, and 2 weeks ago, Matt was rude to me then when I brought that up. The first uncaused cause.
Hey, I'm going to interrupt for a second. Todd, I need you to have a conversation with Promise where you keep whining about how I'm living rent-free in your dishonest fucking head. So don't mention me again, and you won't hear from me again. Fair?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Todd, if you truly believe that there are people that are going to go to hell if they don't believe this, then you should not waste any breath talking about Matt or me or anything else. You should just be able to deliver evidence that would convince, where people hear and they're like, shit, I can't believe I didn't believe this before. Thanks for the information. So what is the information you have that should convince us that a God exists? What is your, explain your first, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I realize that there's a whole argument based around Pascal's wager, but what do you get out of believing if you're wrong? What do you get out of believing in God if you're wrong and there's no God and there's no afterlife? Nothing happens.
Which God?
If you're
Todd,
wrong and there is an
Todd,
afterlife, you're going to spend
Todd,
eternity in hell.
I'll answer your question. If you learn to ask a question and then you wait for my answer, then I can answer you. Sounds like you're just trying to preemptively get to things instead of just having an honest conversation. So you asked me, what could be wrong with just believing? Well, here's my question for you. What God should I believe in? How do I pick the right one? Because there are certain gods that say if you worship the wrong God, then you're going to the bad place. So which God do I believe in? Just in case. Which one should I pick? How should I place my bet correctly? Because right now I'm just being honest and saying, right now I'm just being honest and saying, I don't believe any God exists, so I'm not going to pretend that I do just in case. Because I don't know which afterlife I should begin to be afraid of. So which God should I choose? How do you know that?
As the Bible tells me, there's only one living God. I believe what the scripture says. It's the authoritative word of God.
I don't believe that it's true, so why should I believe that it's true?
It's almost, I can just tell you to read the Bible for yourself. I'm just telling you, you asked me which God you should believe in. There's one living God. All these other gods that you worship are dead. They're dead gods. Christ is the living God.
I'm going to mute you because you don't know how to just answer a question and then listen and engage honestly. It's extremely frustrating. So you asked your question, I answered, I asked you a question. That's how this is supposed to go. Can you remember the last thing I was asking you about?
Which God you should believe in.
Right. And you're saying there's only one God. And then my question was?
And why should you believe in that God?
Right. And then you said the Bible says so. And I said, I don't believe that the Bible matters. Why should I care? So why should I care? Why should I believe the Bible's claims?
Because I really don't see the harm in believing in something that could save your soul.
So we're back to my point.
The Bible's 100% accurate.
God, do you think that I can just choose to believe something? Like, do you think a God would know if I chose that just to be on his good side? Is that a good reason to believe something?
Are you talking about having a Damascus Road experience? We're not all that lucky. I mean, we all fall short of the glory of God.
If you just pause and listen to me, this is going to go so much better. Do you think it's a good idea to believe something just in case a God is going to send me to hell? If not, do you think the God would be offended by that? Do you think your God wants genuine belief, or do you think that your God wants me to pretend to believe for insurance?
I think God wants you to believe. That's what I think.
Right.
I think God wants
don't believe because so far you haven't brought any evidence for me to believe in any God. I definitely haven't been able to get to the Christian God. So again, do you have any evidence other than the Bible says so?
Yes, I have I told Matt, or sorry, not to mention Matt again. I've told people this in the past.
You really fucked up right there, Todd, because no, I'll stop. I'll let you go ahead and finish.
Thank you. I was going to say that the universe we've came to right now came from a universe of complete order, and we get all this complexity and all this disorder, and I don't think you can arrive where we're at right now on a pristine planet.
You just said it's ordered and disordered. Which one is it?
What's what, ordered or disordered? I said that the universe existed in a very simple form and got to be ever so disordered and complex.
Is it how did you reach that conclusion? So you're saying the Earth at one point was simple and ordered, and that now it is complex and disordered? Is that what you're saying?
No, ma'am. I'm saying that the universe was very simple in its origins, and the universe we see today looks nothing like that universe in the beginning, or at least what we
How do you know that?
see and detect.
How do you know that? How did you reach that conclusion?
I got that based off everything I've read about the origins of the universe. Sorry,
Okay,
what the universe. Huh?
So what are the origins of the universe? Because personally, I don't know. So this is going to be interesting.
I don't know the exact origins. I'm saying when the universe first began to exist, it was completely.
When was that?
Different. And
when does the universe have a beginning? And how did you find that out, if so?
At least of what we can see with our instruments, the universe appears to have began 13.8 billion years ago. And that universe is completely different from the universe.
So Todd, I think what we have here is you aren't familiar with what you're talking about because that's not true. That's just blatantly untrue. So where did you get that information from?
Every astronomy book, every astrophysics book, every documentary I've ever read. That's the most agreed upon age of the universe, 13.7 or 13.8 billion years. Am I wrong about that?
Yep.
Okay, so
Matt,
enlighten me.
We don't know the origins, or if there are origins to the universe. We don't know when the universe began to exist. We do not know.
The expansion of the universe dates back to about 13.7 billion years. But prior to that, we have no ability to investigate because the math breaks down at the Planck distance, the Planck time. And so we can't explore before that to know whether or not the substance of the universe always existed in some form, whether it came from something else, if there's anything beyond it. If time began at T0, then it is absolutely absurd to suggest what happened before T0. And so the answer is a big pile of I don't know. So the current age of the universe is based on the expansion of the universe, which is about 13.7 billion years. But what caused it, if anything, is unknown. And so the fact that the Earth began, or the universe, not the Earth, the universe began expanding 13.7 billion years ago, in no way demonstrates what its cause is, and definitely doesn't show that its cause is sufficiently reasonable to conclude that the cause was Jesus, as opposed to some other God or some other being or something that doesn't even exist anymore, or something that we don't understand that is beyond it. So when you go with Pascal's wager in the Bible to say, stop fucking talking forever. When you go to say that the Bible is the reason to believe in the one true living God, that's called circular reasoning. You are begging the very question you are here to try to demonstrate, that there is in fact one true God and that you have good reason to know what it is. You don't. You continue to fail to. I don't believe that you are honest in the slightest. You are bouncing around rather than even acknowledging when a point has been rebutted, or a point has been defeated, or a point has been exposed as incomplete or misunderstood. I am living so rent-free in your head right now. People are asking me if I'm allowed to redecorate. Meanwhile, when you get backed into court, oh, well, it's the empty tomb. Oh, well, it's what Paul said. Oh, it's the Bible. Oh, well, maybe we have DNA. Oh, well, it's because 13.7 years ago, the universe began. You have either been demonstrably wrong about everything you've said, or the things you've said are insufficient and insufficiently supported to actually meet the task you have of demonstrating that the God you believe in is in fact real, or that it's even reasonable to believe that God is real. I don't know why you're talking. I'm still talking, and I'm going to keep talking. If you'd like, I can mute you. If you'd like, I can ban you. If you'd like, you and I can have a conversation offline. I'd be happy to call you sometime to continue. I'd love to find out why you're doing this, because you're absolutely, obviously dishonest. I've done this for 20 years. You are not a sincere believer offering sincere justifications. You are offering up a scattershot progress of things that you've heard or read from others, which is why when Promise asks you questions, you just go, well, I believe it based on everything I've ever read. Well, for all I know, you've never read anything, but of the people who are experts in the things that you've claim to read, they don't believe or advocate for the things you do. And nothing about the cosmological argument or the beginning of the universe in any way demonstrates that Jesus Christ is divine, or ever existed, or exists still. What else have you got?
The fact that you can debate me better makes me a liar. The fact that you can debate me better makes
No,
me
no, no.
dishonest or makes
No,
me...
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you're bad at debating. We know you're bad at debating because I didn't say the fact that I'm better at debating means you're a liar. I've said the fact that you are bad at it and shotgunning things means that you are a liar. You are not an honest person, because when someone points out a fallacy in an argument or a premise that is flawed, the right thing to do if you're an honest individual is say, oh, I hadn't considered that, or maybe you corrected that, or I'll look into that more. I concede that this is on its own not sufficient. I will go look for something better. But instead, you go to, what about this? What about this? What about that? That is the part that is dishonest. That is the part that makes you a liar. Not the fact that I'm better than you. I knew I was better than you before you even picked up the phone. I'm the best. I'm the best in the whole world. Nobody's better than me at this. Gosh, haven't you figured that out yet? No, stop making bad arguments and make a good argument. And then I'll be able to say, you've made a good argument. We're willing to accept it. Because at no point did I say or hint that the fact that I'm better than you at debating means that you're a liar. What I said is the fact that you keep avoiding the concessions and moving on to another topic means that you are a dishonest interlocutor, and that's why I call you a liar.
Oh, I'm being asked questions. And if I get asked a
No,
question,
no,
I
I'm
get
sorry,
asked
sir.
an
I'm
answer.
sorry, but
It
you're
looks
not
like I'm
here to ask
jumping around. I
questions. You are
apologize
here
for
to
that, but I
answer
am not
questions.
dishonest.
You are here to answer questions, and you fucking know that. So why are you now shifting after all of this? Why isn't it the first words out of your mouth is, I apologize for falsely claiming that you think I'm a liar because I'm not as good at debating as you? Why didn't you say that first?
Why would I apologize for not being as good of a debater? I don't think that's anything.
Oh my God, you're
that's
so
not
fucking
what this
stupid.
is about. And
I'm saying you should apologize because you claimed that I said that my position was, because I'm a better debater, that means you're a liar. That is not my position. It's not what I said, but you accused me of it. You should apologize for accusing me of something that's not true.
Sir, I was paraphrasing based off what you said about, for
I'm
all
sorry,
I know.
I don't need you to paraphrase or make any excuses. When I unmute you in a minute, we're going to start with you apologizing for falsely accusing me of believing or claiming that you were a liar because you're not as good at debate. You can make that apology now.
No apology. I'm not going to apologize for being a Christian. I'm not going to apologize because
nobody's asking you to apologize for being a Christian. That is the most ridiculous thing I have heard of. Todd,
he's gone.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but
there's no way he's for real. Using Pascal's wager, I never would have said that as a Christian ever, because I wanted people to like really experience God for themselves and have a relationship with Jesus. And then you're telling me, well, it won't hurt you to just believe anyways. What?
This is how we know that Todd is a liar, because even after going through detail of saying, here's what you said, here's your false accusation, you should apologize for it. The first thing he said was, I was just, paraphrasing. No. You need to apologize for accusing me of something falsely. I'm not going to apologize for being a Christian. Oh my God, congratulations. Your persecution complex imitation is complete and perfect. You're not actually a real Christian, I'm pretty goddamn sure, but you're really good at playing the victim, just like all those other whiny little bitches out there that can't put together a reasoned argument, that can't acknowledge when they've made a bad argument. Oh, you're persecuting me. You want me to apologize for being a Christian. You know what else I want? I want you to apologize for being white. I'm going to apologize. I'm sorry, everybody, I'm white. Evidently, according to the new administration, we no longer have to apologize for being white, but fuck it. I got 10 buckets of privilege. I'm going to go ahead and apologize for being white too. And I'll apologize for being an atheist, and I'll apologize for being better at debating than Todd, and I'll apologize for being more honest than Todd or Andrew or Adam or any number of other people who call. But you know what? You know what's none of it's going to change? The fact that you guys have had opportunity after opportunity to come on and present an evidence-based rational argument for your beliefs. And most of you make no sincere attempt. Most of you cannot carry on a conversation. I read the other day that like 50% of Americans, and I don't know if he's from America, the United States, read at a 5th grade level or lower, and that fully 20% are completely illiterate. And I'd say 90% of those people could put up a better argument than Todd or Adam. It is, thank you for acknowledging that you are defeated and done. You can send an email if you'd like to have a phone conversation. I got your number. I'll jot it down. Maybe one of these days you can explain what you get out of calling in to waste everybody's time and to lie. Can we get a trophy made for most persecuted Christian? That should be my mug next year. Instead of I'm not answering questions, it'll be most persecuted.
That's perfect.
I'll sell $1 billion to every MAGA fundy. All right.
That was great at the end. I don't know how he twisted that. I mean, he was just twisting everything, but wild.
I'm not going to apologize
for being a Christian. No one's asking for that. We're apologize for lying. Oh man. Well, we've got one last call here. Maybe end things on a better note, and then we'll wrap the show for today.
Yeah.
Let's talk to, I believe it's Stefan. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Hello, you are live with Promise and Matt. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing fine. And you?
We're all right. We got through it, and we'll end with this call.
That's almost frustrating.
What's your question for us tonight or today? Sorry.
Yeah. I don't know if it's that much of a question or what it is. And you can just let me know if you don't find it that interesting. But I am an atheist. I live in Denmark. And I'm in a relationship with a theist. And sometimes I have a bit of a hard time working that because she was raised Catholic. She's not Catholic anymore, but she still believes in some version of a Christian God and also spirits and stuff. And sometimes I just have a hard time navigating it. So I was maybe wondering if any of you could have some advice, something I could think about
without
in our
us.
day-to-day
No,
life.
I mean, neither Matt nor I are relationship experts, or maybe Matt is. I don't know. I'm definitely not. I have multiple divorces under my belt. Granted, those were from my Christian days, but I'll just say I think what I have learned to deeply value is compatibility when it comes to values. And so if I can't align on those with a partner, then I can't do life with them. Like I can't navigate. I don't know what maybe you're not looking for a long-term relationship, but for a long-term relationship where we're like building a life together and, sharing a living space and sharing family and all of that, I have to be aligned on my values with them. And one of those values for me is, reality and truth and remaining skeptical, being a skeptic. And so for me, it would be a major incompatibility. So all that to say, I don't know that I have anything helpful to offer, because on the other hand, I know people that are just as atheist as I am, just as much of a skeptic as I am, and yet they have incredible partnerships, spouses, whatever, with people that are believers, and it works for them because that doesn't come up very much, I think, in their relationship. It's somehow their values still match up. So to me, I would consider a red flag that it's even coming up for you, because the people I've talked to that have really successful relationships where they have, drastically different beliefs, like one's a theist and one's not, they're not like, how do I make this work? It's already working. There's some kind of compatibility there that makes it work. So I would look at that. I don't know. Matt, what about you?
I am absolutely, like, there's a few things that I could say that would really piss off a bunch of people. I would never, I know me. For me, relations are built on respect and trust. And I know me, and my life is not in any way an example or a guideline for anybody else in this. I can't respect someone if they are openly, willfully irrational. If they're one of those people who are like, I don't care about truth, I can't be in a relationship with you. And if they're one of those people who are, hey, I believe this, but I fully acknowledge there's no good reason, I can't be in a relationship with that person either. And if they're actively believing something and unable to make any sort of case for it, and believe that other people should as well, but it's the sort of kind of universal. I can't be in a relationship with that person either, because while I may care about that person, and I definitely can value those people, and I might be able to be friends with those people and hang out with them and do all kinds of stuff, I could not be in any sort of intimate partner relationship. I know me, with someone who buys into a whole bunch of obvious pseudoscience and religious bullshit that they can't defend. And that is about me and who I am. And so that's why I don't say that's the right way for anybody else. I know, I think Promise was dead on the money, that for the people that it's going to work for, it just tends to work. Like one of my former co-hosts, Don Baker, gay man, his husband was a Catholic. Don's an atheist. His husband was a Catholic. I say was only because he's no longer alive. They found a way to make it work. And it struck me as incredibly weird. Here you got two gay men married. One's an atheist, one's a Catholic. I don't know how the Catholic one made the gay stuff work, let alone being in a relationship with a godless heathen that's exposing the Catholic Church on a regular basis. But they made it work. And I loved seeing them together. And all I cared about was that they were happy. I was thrilled to be able to go to their wedding. I got to watch them jump a broom. It was a great thing. I don't have to have everyone agree with me on everything. And I don't even have to have intimate partners agree with me on everything. There are things that Arden and I don't agree on. Not many, and not anything particularly substantive, unless she's been, honey, have you been hiding something from me that I was unaware of, that where we vehemently disagree and you're just going to tell me later?
Many things.
Oh my God, it's so many things. But for me, I know what I can't do. And so like on the occasions that I've been single since being an atheist, I intentionally would not date people whose foundational views were different from mine. Also, but to be fair, there's no fucking way I could be in a relationship with somebody who was MAGA. So it's not just a religious thing, and it's not a requirement for complete, uniformity on agreement on beliefs. It's about what I can respect. And I have zero respect for MAGA. I have zero respect for fascists. I have zero respect for the thought process of people who seem to be willfully, eagerly, gleefully irrational. But for those people that go and have a good life that doesn't involve me, good for them. God bless them.
Yeah, I also think I can recall that I've been thinking about making this call for a while. And the reason that I came up to think about it was I can't remember the situation like so clear, but I jokingly said that God is evil to her, and she got like very sad when I said that, visibly upset, and I thought I don't want to like put bonds on myself and having to worry about my views all the time as an atheist, but it struck me that that side of her as a theist, maybe I don't know it too well.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I live in Denmark. It is extremely rare, and this might sound crazy in the US, but it is rare to run into somebody who is a theist in Denmark. So
yeah, I live in Finland now, so I'm getting to enjoy.
Yeah, I know.
This side of the world. It's nice.
Yeah, but I just got thinking, maybe I should get to know her better in that way because I love her, and I do plan on this being a long-term relationship, preferably for the rest of our lives. We've been together for 2 years now, but I've never thought that much about religion in my 34 years of life. So I have a bit of a hard time finding the right questions for her, I think, to get to know that side of her.
I would just, if this is a relationship that's going to be lasting one, then you do need to be able to have conversations like this. And I would say, hey, I would tell exactly what you just told us. Hey, I said this thing the other day, about God being evil, and I can tell that may have made you feel something negative, and I'd love to talk about it because it seems this is a difference between us, and I think we should get into it. That's how my partner and I have difficult conversations, is one of us will bring something up like that and be like, okay, this is a thing we need to talk about, so let's talk about it. And that's the only way to start any of this and figure it out. And maybe you'll discover that this isn't so important to her, and maybe she's had doubts, and maybe it's just a traditional thing for her, and maybe you'll have some cool conversations. Maybe she's super open to hearing your perspective. Maybe you're going to find out that this is really, really important and going to end up being a problem later on, and it's really good that you're talking about it now. But I would, for lack of a better term, rip off that Band-Aid and have that conversation, and I would have it really openly and honestly, because it will... If this is something that's valuable to her, it will come up in other ways throughout your relationship over time, and that's not going to be fun. You want both of you to be in control of the conversation, not life. So I would bring it up. I would have an intentional conversation about it, personally. But I'm that type.
The key things are to be honest with each other, to communicate, and to figure out what you're both comfortable with. My answer about me is based entirely about what I know I am comfortable with. I know who I am. I know myself well enough to know that there are certain things, it's like, throw out all the religion and everything else. Hell, throw out the politics. Let's say you're in a relationship with someone, and you fail to have some of the important conversations, you fall in love, you start talking about getting married, and then you find that one of you is desperate to have kids immediately, and the other one absolutely never wants to have kids. You don't have to have those conversations on the first date, but you definitely should have them sometime so that you don't find out and put yourself in a position where it becomes, oh, I never knew this about you. It's a shock. It just... To quote from Pink Floyd, Stephen Hawking and Pink Floyd, we have to keep talking.
Sure. And
because let's say you both want children, and one of you wants to raise them in the church and the other one wants them to not be raised anywhere in the church. That's another conversation that needs to happen as well, because you guys can fuck up your lives with each other as much as you want, but as soon as you bring a third person into it, as soon as you create that baby, all of a sudden now you've got a responsibility where that shit's got to be talked about.
Yeah, 100%. Right now we're both like kind of on the fence with children. Neither of us are really sure we want it. We just know we want each other, and
and that's great.
And I'm glad for that. But
and also remember that people change. I have some of my favorite people and friends in the world. Hi Ben, hi Pat. For years when they first got together, they were on exactly the same page. We're never having kids. They now have a couple of kids. One's grown, the other one is pretty much grown. And at some point in their life, they're one of the couples that I cite most often, because they know themselves, they work together, they communicate. I don't know everything about the insides of their relationship, although I did live with them almost in short doses for a period of time. But at some time, one or both of them changed their mind and they had a discussion and they wound up with kids. And it's freaking awesome. Their kids are great. Their lives are great. And all of it came down to communicating. So I think you're going to be fine because you're willing to talk to us. And Promise and I are both, and I'm pretty sure the audience would agree, saying, keep going and make sure you talk. Just have those conversations and be willing to listen to the person and figure out who you are and what needs to change. And, you know, stuff, if it's going to work out, if there's any hope that it's going to work out, it's going to be down that road, because the other road is one where I'm putting up air quotes here, works out because people don't talk. And so nothing ever gets resolved. And let me tell you, that is not a relationship working out. That is a roommate that you have promised not to argue with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
and I 100% agree. We're usually very good at talking also about the hard stuff, but I just think that the reason I haven't brought it up is because religion is so far away from what I've been used to. So yeah,
I
rip
think
off the
that's
Band-Aid
probably
might just be it.
yeah, and I think that's actually probably an asset to the conversation, is that it's so, different for you, so that you can approach it with curiosity, ask like, okay, so what is it that you believe? Why do you believe it? How important is this to you? How do you feel about me not believing? Bring it up in that way. And it sounds like you really care about her, and that will come through in the conversation. And that's why I'm saying to just like have the conversation, because you don't want life to present you with a forced conversation about that. This is the most likely way that you're going to have a productive conversation, and it will be an ongoing one where you're getting to know each other and what you think about it. Does she know that you're an atheist?
Oh yeah, she knows.
Okay, cool. Then I bet she has questions too. So you could offer hey, why don't we ask each other, like, you want to ask me questions about being an atheist? Because maybe she doesn't know exactly why you don't believe. Maybe she has some questions of her own there. I think that sounds like a fun date night. Hey, let's go out and ask each other questions about what we believe about God and the universe and all of that.
Yeah, that might be true. Yeah, we had like very small talks about it, but not the big one.
Yeah.
So we might need to do that. Maybe it's just worse in my head, and then it actually will be, because we are usually very good at communicating. But I don't know why this scares me so much.
I can answer, I think, for the same reason that it often scares me and many other people. There are things, I'm not going to pretend to be a better person than I am. There are things that I know I need to address, not with Arden. Arden and I talk all day, every day. There are things I need to address in my life that I am avoiding out of fear of consequences, even though I fundamentally know and understand that the longer I wait, the worse it's absolutely going to get. That sort of procrastination is really common. And it's because, at least in our head, we imagine, something could happen between point A and point B that could make it not be worse if I wait too long, which is almost certainly not true. And it's like, if you found out you were going to be incompatible with someone long term, would you rather find out on the first date, on the second date, or after 20 years in marriage and 3 kids? And there's no right answer to that, because let me tell you, 20 years of marriage and 3 kids could be enough a reward to wait that long to find out. I'm not making, y'all get to decide what life you want. But however bad you think it's going to be to have a conversation fairly early in the relationship, I think most of the time it's going to pale to what could happen once there's a significant, serious investment in the couple. So yeah, I'm a really good procrastinator and rationalizer. And
me too.
And so are some of my friends. So you decide what works best for you.
And I would think of some questions and write them down in advance. That honestly, if anything, will probably make her feel cared about, like you were thinking about her and wanting to get to know her more, and put thought behind the questions. And that always helps me. I have to do that for myself. I'll literally make notes about, okay, I want to ask this. And that gives you time to like think about it. And maybe
I'm used to doing that.
Okay, so there you go. I bet you'll be really good at coming up with those.
Yeah.
So yeah, treat it like that as a fun way of getting to know each other, because you're right, it is a kind of a loaded conversation that's already going to be a lot. So find a way to make it less scary for yourself. But it sounds like it's already off on a good foot because you guys care about each other.
Yeah, deeply. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for calling. Is there... Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yeah, you're welcome, and thanks for. No, it's okay. I'm okay. It's also late here, so I have work in the morning. But
well, great. Thanks so much for calling. We'll talk to you again. Let us know how it goes if you feel like it.
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. Thanks. Have a good night.
You too.
I hope that was bye, because that's what I hung up on. So normally we wrap up around 4:00 after 3 hours of doing this, and I'm sure that Promise is ready to end and go get some rest and have a wonderful evening and day. There's not going to be a calling it now or Cuz I Wanna or any of that right now, but there is going to be a Sunday show after dark coming up at 6 p.m. Is it 6 or 7?
7 p.m.
7 p.m.
7 p.m.
Don't listen to me, guys.
6 p.m. is most days. 7 p.m. is the late show.
Meanwhile, head over to linemerch.com to get merchandise for the line. You can go to patreon.com/calltheline. And if you look around for Epic, EPIC, space LOOT exotics, that's mine and Arden's. We have geckos listed on Morph Market, but I probably shouldn't. Well, fuck it. I'll advertise. Go check it out. But have a great day.
No, definitely advertise our Morph Market. Go buy our geckos on Morph Market, please.
Do it.
Thanks, everybody, except Todd.
Bye.
I'm not.